move this, but you do the motion.
Yeah, can you do that real quick? Yeah, please. And let's do that after the pledge. Let's do that after the pledge. Yeah. What's that? Okay. Well, should we go ahead and get started, or? Okay. We'll get started here in just a second.
Oh.
Yeah, very serious. Very, very serious. Deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolism. He's lucky. What's that? Or are you reading the motions for land use, or is the? Well, I think that, are you doing Kelly's motions? Yeah, I think, yeah. All right. All right, got to make sure we're all on the same sheet of music here. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, thank you. Now, while we have 5 members of the council present in person, we actually have Council Member Mark Kopang appearing telephonically. Mark, can you hear me okay?
Nope.
Councilmember Kopang?
I can hear you great, Jim. Thank you very much.
Okay. Do you want to, he's unable to, he was feeling under the weather, and he's calling from a remote location. So he's here. Can I tell where you're, Mark, can I tell him where you're at?
Yeah, you can tell him.
He's at the hospital. He's at Auburn Regional Hospital. This was so important to him. He wanted to make sure that he was, and I'm sorry, Mark, not to, I know this is your private issue, but I wanted you to know that Councilmember Kopang wanted to be here. He's here telephonically, and he'll be participating in the meeting. All right, now. He'll be out in a couple of days. So thank goodness. All right. So at this stage, what we've got is the new police officer swearing-in ceremony. I would say that Councilmember Maloney had some unexpected business come up, and she's unable to be here tonight. And we've got 3A on the agenda is presentations, new police officer swearing-in ceremony. I'll ask you to have our Chief Wong show up and come up to the podium and introduce our new officers.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Burbidge, members of the council. It's my pleasure to introduce to you and to our citizens the newest members of the Federal Way Police Department. And they'll also be given the oath of office by Mayor Farrell. First, we have Officer Austin Rogers. He's to the right there. Officer Rogers has been hired as a lateral police officer arriving from distant shores of Hawaii. Austin was born in Puyallup and raised here in Washington. He relocated to Hawaii, where he served as a police officer with the Honolulu Police Department since January of 2013. He spent his 3.5 years with HPD, working patrol in downtown Honolulu. Austin earned his bachelor's degree in sociology from the University of Hawaii. Joining him tonight is Austin's mother, Mrs. Mary Rogers, and his aunt, Marilyn. So thank you for joining us. Next, we have Officer Alexandro Mariani. Officer Mariani has been hired as a lateral police officer, coming to us from the Big Apple. Alexandro earned his associate's degree in criminal justice from Kaplan University, and he has a Bachelor's of Science and a Master's degree in criminal justice at Walden University. He began his law enforcement career in 2015 at the New York Police Department. Prior to NYPD, Alexandra was a loss prevention supervisor with Bloomingdale and a transportation security officer with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Joining Alexandra tonight is his wife, Colleen, and their daughter, Elena. And also joining him tonight is mother and father-in-law, Bob and Linda. Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, so please join me in welcoming the newest members of the Federal Way Police Department.
Gentlemen, step right up. Do we have a deal for you? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, please state your name.
I, Alessandro Margaret,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and state of Washington,
and state of Washington,
and that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and will, to the best of my judgment,
and will, to the best of my judgment,
skill, and ability,
skill, and ability,
truly and faithfully,
truly and faithfully,
diligently and impartially,
diligently and impartially,
perform the duties of police officer
perform the duties of police officer
in and for the city of Federal Way,
in and for the city of Federal Way,
County of King,
County of King,
state of Washington,
state of Washington,
and such duties as prescribed by law,
and such duties as prescribed by law,
so help me God.
so help me God.
All right, good luck. Congratulations.
Okay, Thaddeus, why don't you come up here? Right here. Yeah, so they can take a good look at you.
All right, and now we have Police Department Corporal swearing in, Chief Wong.
Yeah, standing next to me is Officer Thaddeus Hodge. Tonight, Officer Hodge is being promoted and being promoted to the position of corporal. Corporals act as a squad supervisor in the absence of a lieutenant, serve as a trainer and a role models for officers, and participate in department's field training program for new recruits. All of the corporals are assigned to uniform assignment and field operations. Corporal Thaddeus Hodge is a founding member of the Federal Way Police Department, beginning his service to our community in March of 1997. During his tenure with the Federal Way Police Department, Thaddeus has served as an officer and a detective in a variety of assignments, including patrol, criminal investigations, the Commons Mall, traffic unit, and currently as a member of the Special Operations Unit. His previous supervisory experience also include his years of service in our Officer in Charge program. Beyond this, Thaddeus spent more than a decade as a police explorer advisor, mentoring our youth. Corporal Hodge holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and has 9 years of military service in the United States Army, serving overseas as a special agent with NATO. Please join me in congratulating Corporal Thaddeus Hodge for this significant achievement in his law enforcement career. At this time, I'm going to have Thaddeus' wife, Sarah, come up and pin his new corporal badge. Sarah is a lawyer. She's served as a judge in Pierce County. She's practicing law in Pierce County. So Thaddeus, good job marrying up. But
It's got to be just right. Corporal Hodge, would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, state your name,
I, Thaddeus Hodge,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of Washington,
and will, to the best of my judgment,
and will, to the best of my judgment,
skill, and ability,
skill, and ability,
truly and faithfully,
truly and faithfully,
diligently and impartially,
diligently and impartially,
perform the duties of corporal
perform the duties of corporal
in and for the city of Federal Way,
in and for the city of Federal Way,
King County,
King County,
state of Washington,
state of Washington,
and such duties as prescribed by law,
and such duties as prescribed by law,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
This can't go here. I close the budget hearing and then I move it over here.
Okay, then do that first.
Yeah, I'll close it and then over here I'll make the motion under this one.
That's great. Okay, thank you very much. You always get the details right. All right.
Somebody has to.
All right, it's great. It's great to see people start their new careers and moving up into different responsibilities. So we wish you well. Okay. Now we'll have our annual update from the Valley Communications Executive Director, Laura Ueland. Laura?
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, City Council members. Thank you for allowing me to come here today. I am Laura Ueland. I serve as the Executive Director of Valley Communications Center, which is the 911 center for Federal Way Police, South King Fire, and 21 other police and fire agencies in South King County. My purpose in this brief presentation is to provide information on the efforts underway to develop a regional E911 strategic plan. I will share with you why we need one, what the process is to develop the plan, who is involved, and how the plan will be adopted. For the last 50 years, the technology supporting 911 call routing function was relatively unchanged nationwide. When cell phones came on the scene, some modifications were made to enable routing to the appropriate 911 center. Today, technology advancements and the change in how people communicate are driving the industry to a digital IP-based system, which is a completely different system than what we have today. The costs associated with this change have made it apparent that a more formal, collaborative, and transparent decision-making structure was needed to ensure our 911 system is able to meet the needs and expectations of the people in King County. 911 services in our area are delivered in a partnership between the King County E911 Program Office and 12 public safety answering points, commonly called PSAPs, of which Valleycom is one, and I might add, a very good one. The overall system as depicted in this slide shows the relationship between the private telephone carriers on the left sending the 911 call to the county-owned network and the county-owned equipment, which then routes the call to the correct PSAP, represented in the yellow box on the right. The strategic plan will cover the area shown in the blue box. This is the equipment and network that routes the call to the PSAP. This function is the responsibility of the King County E911 Program Office and is funded through excise taxes for landline, wireless, and voice-over IP phones. And it is this portion that we refer to as the regional system. And you can see that the box overlaps a little into the PSAP area of responsibility, and that represents the phone equipment in the PSAP that receives the call. What this plan will not cover is the operations of the individual PSAP. The majority of the PSAP costs are borne by the PSAPs themselves and their local jurisdictions and stakeholders. Incorporating cellular calls in the existing telephone network was more or less successful. There are still a few challenges, but the old technology cannot support the needs of the digital age. texting, sending videos and pictures, and other aspects of what is known as Next Generation 911 requires a redesign. Next Gen 911 is a federal initiative to modernize existing landline-based 911 technologies and upgrade systems to better work with wireless and voice-over internet technologies. The cost of NG 911 and the speed in which it can be transitioned is limited by the current financial resources. There are significant increases in the complexity in the program and project management, as well as major security vulnerabilities that require advanced planning and expertise. PSAPs in the E911 office, as well as the 911 industry nationwide, agree that planning and prioritization are essential to successfully transition to Next Gen 911. In December of last year, a strategic plan scoping committee was created through a King County ordinance to begin the planning and prioritization process. In May of this year, the scoping committee, which was comprised of representatives from the county, municipalities, PSAPs, and others, agreed upon the process that would develop a regional strategic plan. The scoping report outlined the components of the plan, who would be involved, and the timeline. The strategic plan consists of 3 layers: a leadership group, a planning group, and 3 different task forces. We have a facilitator who's assisting us in all elements of the plan creation. It is the leadership group that will finalize and recommend the strategic plan to the King County Executive, who will then transmit it to the King County Council. The leadership group is a 15-person team who's been appointed by the County Executive and confirmed by the Council. They're expected to meet about 5 times between September of 16 and December of 17. And the planning group is supporting the leadership group by preparing the recommendations and/or decision options for each of the key questions identified during the scoping process. We are also supervising the work that's being done by the task forces by providing guidance and input. The planning group membership was also appointed by the executive and approved by council, and we are meeting monthly. There are 11 members, 1 for each entity represented on the leadership group. The E911 program manager and myself are the co-chairs of the planning group. Providing information and recommendations to the planning group are 3 task forces, focusing on governance, technology, and finance. The task forces are comprised of subject matter experts from representatives of the planning group. For example, my finance manager is involved in the finance committee. One of our system admins is on the technology committee, and I'm serving on the governance task force. We also have a subject matter expert consultant for each of those disciplines. Strategic planning is underway. It's scheduled to be completed December of 17. The financial forecast, which in part identified the need for the plan, shows there to be a gap between revenue and expenses in King County in the 19-20 budget. The structure identified by the strategic plan will be in place to inform that budget and to guide the ongoing process of implementation of Next Gen 911 technology. This slide, quite busy, but it shows the different working groups, how they're organized to achieve their task. On the left, you can see the different groups, such as the ultimate, or maybe you can, the ultimate authority with check-in points for the Regional Policy Committee and the King County Council. They're scheduled in the first and second quarter of 17, with that final approval in December of 17. There's 5 leadership group meetings that I mentioned, and there's outreach being done by another consultant in between each of those meetings to get information and feedback from each member that they may not be wanting to share in the larger group. The planning group meetings are monthly, and then the task forces are below that. So it's all coordinated and very strategically planned to get to our outcome. The people involved in this plan, you can see here, this is the planning group. Sound Cities is represented, as well as the 911 centers, City of Seattle, Bellevue, King County, and a fire representative as well. On the leadership group, Sound Cities has 3 representatives, as well as those other entities that I've mentioned. This was the same group, the leadership group, that comprised the scoping process, so we have continuity from one element to the next. And finally, we can't hit pause on the care and feeding of our 911 system while we're planning for the next generation. To that end, the same ordinance that established the strategic planning effort established an interim advisory committee. and the interim advisory is made up of 4 PSAP representatives. Their purpose is to advise and consult with King County E911 Program Office regarding the technology, financial, and system operational issues that exist right now. For example, Text to 911 is a technology project which was identified as needed to be implemented before the completion of the strategic plan. The interim advisory group and the E911 Program Office are working now to deploy a secure, reliable, what we're calling an interim text to 911 solution, because a fully integrated texting solution requires a fully IP-based system. The interim text to 911, which we expect to be deployed in mid-2017, will allow for SMS texting. It will not allow yet for the transmission of videos and pictures. So in closing, the work being done to prepare for our regional next-gen 911 system is vitally important. We must ensure readiness now and into the future so we're prepared to answer that next 911 call for help in whatever form it is presented. The strategic planning effort will establish the priorities for the regional portion of the E911 system and will provide guidance for the ongoing process for decision-making, funding, and implementing those priorities. I do look forward to sharing the finalized strategic plan with you sometime in 2018. So are there any questions?
All right. Council, any questions? Laura, thank you so much for the work you do on behalf of all of us. 911 is so critical, and it's a pleasure to work with you on the board. And we really, we all rely on 911 to be there in times of crisis, and you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now on to Mayor's Emerging Issues and Report. As you all know, Councilmember Maloney is resigning from the council, and her last meeting is actually our next meeting on December 6th. Therefore, and then her resignation will be effective, I believe, in the last day of the year, December 31st. And so therefore, in anticipation, and I think with her stated desire to enable us to start this process prior to that position actually coming vacant, we've started the process of soliciting individuals to apply for that, what we believe will be, and what is noted as a council vacancy beginning on January 1st. Now, we can't actually do the appointment until Councilmember Maloney actually leaves the council, but we can take applications and we can, go through a preliminary process. So right now, the deadline is Wednesday, November 23rd. I believe that's the day before Thanksgiving. Wednesday, November 23rd at noon. So if you're interested, there is a notice of council vacancy. Is that on the city website? And there's some in the back there. It's got all the details. There are some questions that the council, who will be doing the interview process at the beginning of the year, will be very interested to see where people come down on the issues that the council and the city face. So again, the appointment process, or the application process, is open. Right now it's scheduled to close on Wednesday, November 23rd. We would certainly welcome anybody and everyone who's interested in applying for the city council. It's a great opportunity to serve. It's a great opportunity to meet all your neighbors and to hear from your neighbors frequently, and it's great. And that's what city government's all about. And so we want to hear, and that's why we want to get as many applicants as we can. And I say right now the deadline is November 23rd, and that's right now the hard deadline. But depending on circumstances, that date could always get pushed out as well. We want to get as many people to apply as possible. The interviews, as I said, will be conducted in early next year, and as will the appointment. So, council, any questions about that appointment process? Okay. And we vetted all the questions by council to make sure that we had a wide range of questions. So we certainly hope you apply, and at a minimum, we would really appreciate when we have that council meeting in which we're asking the candidates questions. We need you guys to be here as well to watch the responses. It is actually, we've gone through this process a few times in the past couple of years, and it's a great process. And we get, the great thing is sometimes people don't realize maybe they're interested in serving in city council, and they haven't really thought about it. And sometimes a process like this can really start someone's service that will last, for how long? It's a great opportunity to serve the public. All right. Now, we've got holiday tree lighting at Town Square Park on December 3rd. We've got our Parks Director, John Hutton, who's going to be talking to us about that process.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Burbidge, members of the City Council. I'm excited to invite the entire public to our annual tree lighting ceremony. This year will be held on December 3rd. That's a Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. at our own Town Square Park with our brand new living 22-foot Nordman fir Christmas tree. It is beautiful. We'll be starting the decoration process very soon. We're very excited. It is going to be a jam-packed program of fun. We have several children's choirs singing. We have several adult singing groups. Some of the performers that will be there will be the Desna T Orchestra, Silver Lake Elementary Choir, the Harmony Kings, Brigadoon Elementary Honor Choir, the Federal Way Chorale, and Thomas Jefferson's Drumline will be there to end the festivities. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have refreshments. We have a live reindeer. It is going to be a lot of fun. It's been a well-attended event. Last year when we were building the park, we took a one-year trip over to Wild Waves. They were very gracious in helping us do our holiday tree lighting there. But this year we get to bring it back to our own park. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please be there. I recommend arriving a little early. And Mayor, did you have any predictions on the weather that evening?
It's going to be beautiful.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Is that the whole thing, or can you scroll
I
down?
can scroll down a little bit. I'm sorry I didn't fit it to the screen. So
There we go.
this is a shot of Town Square Park 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And our tree is actually bigger than that, and it is a beautiful tree. So it will be a lot of fun. Definitely welcome the entire public. This is a free event. It'll be a great time had by all, so it's always fun.
And the great thing about our tree is it's alive. It'll get bigger every year. So we're going to need the fire department out there to help us do the lights in years coming. So, Council, any questions? Councilmember Honda?
Is Santa coming?
I believe Santa will be there.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Council, any other questions? So, and then it'll be, once we do this, it'll be lit every night until, through the month of December?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Yep, that's right. Okay, Council, anything else? John, thank you very much. Look forward to it. Marwan, our Public Works Director, can you tell us a little bit about what we're looking at in regard to our screens?
Mayor, what you're looking at is, this is a project that was completed last week. This is the Sacagawea Safe Route to School project. This is a project that the total cost of the project, $1.5 million. It was 80% funded by federal money, 20% by the city. So the city portion was $300,000 and the federal portion was $1.2 million.
That's great. Looks beautiful. Thank you very much. We wanted to make sure everybody could see that great picture. Before we go any further, we've got our state representative-elects in attendance, Christina Reeves and Mike Policiotti. If you could please stand and acknowledge, we'll give you a big round of applause. We've got really kind of the first draft of our legislative agenda that we're going to be working on a little bit later, and they wanted to be here to make sure as we go through that preliminary discussion. The final passage of that will be at our next council meeting on December 6th. Okay, let's see here. Veterans Day observances. Boy, we had, I went to, along with Councilmember Honda on Friday, I went to Foundation House. They do just such a great job at Foundation House. And we had a Veterans Day celebration and some speeches and video collages. It was a great opportunity to hear from servicemen and men and women and their families, and it was just a great time to talk about the service that the great service that veterans have done for our country. On Saturday, we were at Todd Beamer High School for the Kiwanis and Historical Society putting on the annual Veterans Day event. It was great. Again, several of my colleagues up here were at that event. It was great to see the Todd Beamer. This is at Todd Beamer, 2 o'clock on Saturday. And we had Harmony Kings there, and just a great presentation. We heard from a retired general who used to be a vice president at Weyerhaeuser. And what was Jimmy's last name?
Collins.
Thank you, Jimmy Collins. And So it's not often you can refer to a general as Jimmy, but he gave a great talk and had just a phenomenal history. And then today, Todd Beamer High School actually put on its school assembly for Veterans Day, and so they had 2 assemblies. The fun part is I got to bring my little 9-year-old to come with me, so he was really, it was a lot of fun. It was his first high school assembly, not his last. And so we got to see 2 assemblies, and several members of the council were there as well. So it was a great, it's been a great Veterans Day, and it just reminds me there are so many people who truly love this country, and so many people who have given absolutely so much. The last, many their last full measure, but many their service and their cherished time and energies and talents. And so it's great to see young veterans and old alike. So it was a really great several days of celebrations of Veterans Day. SCA, Sound Cities Association, you know, we talk a lot about homelessness and what we're trying to get our arms around. What are the causes of homelessness? You know, certainly Seattle is embroiled in really a crisis of homelessness, as is all of King County and frankly many areas in the state and around the country. At the core, at the center of that issue, many people believe is the use and abuse of opioids, and how opiates have, because of the overprescriptions and the abuse of that, you know, some people just having access to opiates that are in medicine cabinets and those kinds of things. What has been, this was a mayor's roundtable that was really hosted by Sound Cities Association, of which I'm a board member, but it's really been led by, this effort was led by mayors Backus of Auburn and Mayor Law of Renton. And they convened a meeting of King County mayors. It was actually a great opportunity to meet some folks I had not met before that were mayors from all the different cities in King County. And we had a very good discussion with public health folks, with addiction experts, and about how the opioid addiction and the bow wave has then morphed into the use of heroin. And that has actually been one of the major causes to homelessness and all kinds of, you know, just destruction in people's lives. And so there were some great lessons and stories from individual mayors from around our county about how to address this and what steps can be taken. And so we've got a drug drop-off box in our lobby here. That's one step. We're going to be putting something I committed at this meeting. They actually was great at the end of the meeting. Instead of just having a meeting talking about this issue, they asked each mayor to commit to do several things. So we're going to be putting some programming on Channel 21 about folks who find themselves in this position and what to do. We all know probably people that have been affected by this, and that's why I'm really proud of the council and the work that's been done here at the city to address the homelessness issue. And we've got the day center opening here real soon, and trying to help the people, these people who are people's sons and daughters and you know, husbands and wives, you know, get out of this desperate cycle of homelessness and drug addiction. And so it was a really good discussion, but it's the beginning and not the end of a discussion. So I'll keep you updated as that work continues.
Excuse me, Mayor, may I say something?
Yeah, please.
Which goes right in. I was going to
Yes.
do this in my report, but it fits right in with what you were talking
Please.
about. I just wanted to say that there's going to be a new veterans housing
That's right.
opening soon here in Federal Way that's been done by the Multi-Service Center, and I believe it's opening on the 8th of December. The ribbon cutting will be done then. I want to give some credit to a former mayor and council member, Jack Dovey, who owned the property and contacted me when I was still the CEO of the Multi-Service Center and asked if I would be interested in purchasing it for housing. And at that time, we were aware of a very acute problem for veterans coming home from overseas who'd been engaged in the Middle East wars and other wars, and they were having a lot of problems. And we decided to go for funding for veterans housing. And the funding finally all came together, and then I retired from MSC, and the new CEO, Robin Korak, took over and got the project built, and it's going to be opening, as I say, on December 8th. It's going to house both men and women. And I was very, very deliberate in making sure women were included in this, because women have been involved in every war this country has ever fought in, including the Revolutionary War. And they haven't been recognized until recently. The women flew planes over to Pearl Harbor after the Japanese attacked us, and while they were flying those planes, the Japanese were trying to shoot them down. So I was very, very pleased that we are including women in this project, and they're going to get the recognition that they deserve. Just as I reminded Mayor Farrell about that, and we invited a woman for the, was it Memorial Day that they came or spoke a couple of years ago?
That's right.
But I just want you to know, women have been involved in this country for a long time, but not been recognized. And I'm very, very pleased that this house is opening up for both men and women.
Well, thank you. Points well taken. And it reminds me when Councilmember Duclos put 16 years in at the Multi-Service Center, and she actually recruited me to be on that board 22 years ago. Isn't that crazy? A few moons ago.
Now you're telling my age, for heaven's sake.
Anyway, thank you so much. And you know, the reason why I wanted to show everybody the picture of the sidewalk there is, yeah, it's a picture of a sidewalk, but that, if you think about, that's right in front of Sacagawea Junior High. And the council and our city have been working to make sure that we've got safe pathways for children to walk to school, to come and go from school. And so that really represents a very safe and steady pathway that's going to be well lighted. And so the safety of our students is very important. So I'd like to thank the council for their vision and leadership and help in getting that accomplished. All right, we've got next Thursday and Friday, we've got City Hall closed for the Thanksgiving holiday and the day after. And then we had the Chamber of Commerce Gala last Saturday at Highline College. It was a great event. Many of the council members were there. Many people in the community were there, and it's just a great opportunity to work with our business community and maybe not work, but have a little bit of fun as well, and really talk about the future of our community. So it was a great event. That's my report. And now for the most important part of the evening is citizen comment. First, we've got Jenny Hills.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, and citizens. I live at Waterbury Park, and there's a lot of domestic violence through a company called Moxie Incorporated. A lot of these people take over the parking lot, and they're sometimes mean to some of the other people outside of their system. And being one of their clients got into a domestic violence situation, this needs to be looked in. This company, I don't know what they're about or, anything. But the way that they act towards a lot of the people that live at the apartment complex are extremely rude. And so we need to have somebody look into what they're about and the purpose of why their clients are in the apartment complex. A lot of us are now complaining to the office staff about these people because they come in and out with their cars, and so they need to be looked at. The other thing is, there is an apartment complex called Fox apartment complex over close to the Winco, and there's unused land across from there. I was thinking maybe that we should think about building some apartments or a hotel or motel where the homeless can live, since it's unused land. And so that's something that we should also think about because of what's going on with the homeless and stuff around the different neighborhoods. And so that's something to look into. The other thing is, our son is now advancing from one program to another in our school. He's doing very wonderful, and hope he keeps it up. But anyway, just wanted to let you guys know about this company. They need to be looked into because these people, I don't know what they're about, but they need some serious help. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. We'll have somebody get back to you on those issues, okay? Thank you. Karen Langridge, Norma Blanchard, and Frank Zink. So Karen first. Karen Langridge. Then Norma, then Frank. After Frank, we've got Dana Holloway.
Came in last. I didn't expect to be up first. Greetings, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor, council members, community. Today, I would like to voice my concern about Summit Law Group's investigation into the fraud and ethics violation allegations against your Chief of Staff, Brian Wilson, and their subsequent findings. It's my understanding that Summit Law Group was hired by the City of Federal Way for labor negotiations And in that labor negotiating capacity, it would seem that Summit Law Group is in constant and close contact with Brian Wilson, as he is involved in virtually every single aspect of things concerning the city and Mayor Farrell's office. So I would hazard a guess that they know Mr. Wilson very well. Therefore, I believe it gives every appearance of being a conflict of interest for Summit Law Group to have been the impartial judge and jury investigating the fraud and ethics violation allegations against Mr. Wilson. I believe that Summit Law Group's findings should be set aside, that the investigation into Mr. Wilson's fraud and ethics violation allegations should be reopened, and that a totally neutral person should be appointed to reinvestigate these allegations against your chief of staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Norma?
I'm Norma Blanchard, longtime resident, excuse me, of Federal Way, and I'm here to speak about term limits. In January, when you had the retreat, there was supposed to be a discussion. There was no discussion. There was two people that made a speech. One was the mayor, and one was Selsky, and he's not here. A council lady tried to ask questions, and she was shut down. That was not a discussion. So I'm here to ask you to bring forward term limits and discuss it, because it's going to happen one way or the other. Term limits on, there's 5 cities. They're Edgewood, Port Angeles, Spokane, Tacoma, and Puyallup. 2 cities, the council put term limits on themselves. One was Port Angeles and one was Puyallup. So it can be done. And in 2010, we had a petition all drawn up, and it was on the streets. I was one of the ones getting signatures. And then we were called and said that we had to take it off the street because we have 6 months to gather signatures. But because of the fluke, the city only put 90 days on that. So we gathered signatures August 27th, and we had to have it, as deadline for it was October the 5th. That's not 6 months. So everything went down the tube. And this is the city's responsibility because we, the people, did not get to have our say. So we need to have our say on term limits. So if people want to know about the history of the city council, you can get in touch with Stephanie and she'll give you, it's very interesting. Everybody should get one and look at it. It'll give you a lot of information. So if we do, and I have a citizen petition going around gathering signatures myself, and I will present it to the council, but you owe the people the right, because Roy Park had this printed and everything, and that's expensive, and I tried to talk him into suing the city, because it was a city screw-up, because the RCWs explains very clear, we have 6 months to gather the signatures. The 90 days come in for a referendum, that's different. So think about it, because I'm out there.
All right, Frank Zink, then Dana Holloway, and then Lori Sechrist.
Good evening, Mayor, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I propose that the City Council look into getting out of sound transit. As I recall, they looked into this about 7 years ago. I think that Federal Way should quit buying the lies of sound transit and tell them Federal Way will not finance any more of the sound transit boondoggles until they actually meet the promises that they've already made. It's only 10 miles from SeaTac Airport to 272nd, and they're promising us another 10 years before we actually get light rail. I'm a railroad nut. I like trains, but this is ridiculous. As I recall, they promised us 2015. The first go-round in ST1 was like 2008. Now it's 2015. Now it's 2025. ST3 is written, allows them to change plans at will, still collect incredibly high property taxes, and for what? What does Federal Way get out of it until the light rail is built? A couple of buses every day, they get on the interstate and probably get stuck in the traffic with all of us who actually have to drive to work. We've already spent a lot of money on Sound Transit 1, bunch more on Sound Transit 2, which gets us to 272nd. And, when it comes to the buses, they're mostly duplicated by King County Transit. We need light rail for commuters, and the system that they built so far is absolutely no good for commuters, especially once you go from the airport downtown. Doesn't connect with our largest employer, Boeing Aircraft. There's no good reason that I can think of for the Sound Transit delays. Downtown Tunnel came after Sound Transit, and if the machine hadn't broken down, would be done by now. So I think that we should look into it and tell them no. And on the good side of this one is if we get out of it, property prices in Federal Way will go up because all the people who live outside Federal Way want to move to Federal Way to avoid those ridiculous taxes. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Frank. Dana Holloway, and then Lori Sechrist.
Hello, Mayor, City Council, and citizens. First, I'd like to acknowledge and welcome our new Community Development Director, Brian Davis. He was here last meeting also, but I don't know if everybody knew he was there. And Brian, welcome to Federal Way, and may we work together to make a better Federal Way. In the Federal Way Economic Development Strategy, Some Assembly Required, dated January 2015, it stated the reuse of Weyerhaeuser Corporate Campus is tantamount to Federal Way's economic development strategy. Goal 3 was alignment of reuse of Weyerhaeuser Corporation Campus to next generation of jobs. I don't know if you guys remember, but I brought that up at the September 6th City Council meeting, and I asked, what is the city's definition of the next generation of jobs? And please provide examples of the type of jobs and which may apply to the City of Federal Way. As a follow-up, I sent an email to Mayor Farrell and asked for my answer, and he forwarded on to, at that time, the Community Development Director, Tim Johnson, who was also the author of the report, to answer my question. And I thought I would share what Tim Johnson said, because I think it interests everybody. As it pertains to your question regarding next generation of jobs, this refers to jobs created or supported by a rapid increase in the growth of information, increased reliance on computers, new technologies such as autonomous technology, such as unmanned vehicles, along with new competencies needed for the information age. In the case of Federal Way, this involves jobs in the employment sectors, such as medical, healthcare, life sciences, information communication technologies, professional and business services, global trade and investment, along with, global trade and investment, along with entrepreneurship. I'm looking forward to these jobs, having these jobs at Federal Way campus in Weyerhaeuser. Thank you.
Me too, Dana. All right, Lori Sechrist, And then after Lori, it's Tashana Nash.
Okay. So, thank you, Mayor, City Council, and wonderful community citizens and neighbors. Tonight, I'd like to revisit the 1994 Concomitant Agreement, and in particular, the Section 2 titled "The Conclusions from the Ordinance 94-219," dated 4/7/1994. The Federal Way City Council makes the following conclusions of law with respect to the decisional criteria necessary to approve an initial zone classification and to approve the proposed concomitant agreements. A, the proposed concomitant agreements will have the beneficial effect upon the community and users of the development, which would not normally be achieved by traditional application of the city's zoning districts. B, the unusual environmental features of the site will be preserved, maintained, and incorporated into the design to benefit the development in the community because the subject property has widely recognized natural features ranging from North Lake and Lake Clenari to the Weyerhaeuser Bonsai Collection and the Rhododendron Garden, which attracts visitors on an international scale. The concomitant agreement will provide property owners the means to preserve and protect these natural features, as well as providing the city with the ability to ensure that all natural features are adequately protected. C, the concomitant agreement provides for areas of openness because any development in the corporate headquarters area is low density, characterized by large expanses of open spaces. The character of this subject property will be preserved under the concomitant agreement. D, the concomitant agreements and the initial zone classification of the RS 9600 are consistent with the comprehensive plan, are consistent with all applicable provisions of the Federal Way City Code, and are consistent with the public health, safety, and welfare. So I ask, if the city's intentions truly is to enforce the letter of the law, and the city believes that the 1994 concomitant agreement is the law for this property, then we simply ask the city to enforce it. The city must ensure that the development fits within the zoning, the intent of the agreement, and has the beneficial effect upon the community. But the city's job doesn't end there. The city must ensure that the proposed projects comply with the environmental and development regulations, is in accord with the city's comprehensive plan and the Puget Sound Regional Vision 2040. And it does not pose a threat to public health, safety, and welfare. So do not ignore the plain language of the agreement and what uses are permitted in this zone. In order for the city to maintain a healthy and habitable and sustainable living community, it must be free of industrial development. So I have been asked several times, what is the goal of the Save Weyerhaeuser Campus organization? So it's simply this. It's to ensure the city and the new owner develops the former Weyerhaeuser campus in a manner that protects the unique natural features of the property, preserves the open spaces, and maintains the low-density character of the campus. I'd like to end with George Washington's quote that I know we've heard before, but I'm going to say it again, quoted in the 1969 Sports Illustrated interview. When the change is for all time and involves a unique physical asset, I think we have to weigh it very, very carefully to see what price we are going to have to pay for economic progress. Thank you.
Tashana Nash, and then Damon, I think it's Rauschler.
My name is Tashana Nash. I am a 14-year resident of the North Lake neighborhood, and am serving on the board of the Save Weyerhaeuser campus as the committee chair for fundraising. This year, my husband Darren and I are celebrating our 20th year living in the Pacific Northwest. We graduated college in Lubbock, Texas, and drove straight to Seattle, sight unseen, with 2 golden retrievers and all our belongings in the back of a pickup truck. We will be forever grateful to Jennifer and Carrie Lang, who offered Darren a job in the fall of 1996 at their construction company in a town called Federal Way. I love this town. I love our schools and our teachers and the staff who love my kids. I love our restaurants, our shopping, high school football games at Memorial Stadium, working out at Town Square Park with an amazing view of Mount Rainier, and driving by our big, giant American flag on 320th. I love the friends that we have made here, the community we have built, and the neighborhood we are so blessed to live in. I want to save Weyerhaeuser campus from destruction and be part of a building a city that we can be proud of. A place where my 3 daughters will want to return to after college. A place so great that they'll want to raise their families here. We have to work together to create the most responsible plan for this property, one that not only positively impacts current residents, their children, and future generations, but one that can serve as a model and inspire other communities to find the right balance between planet and prosperity. Thank you.
Now it's time for Damon Rauscher, and then Jill Payne and Rachel Wilson.
Hello, my name is Damon Rauscher, and I came here today to beseech and implore you to not move forward with the project. In doing so, we'll destroy the land, and a natural treasure will be lost for all time. I'm strongly against the sale of the Weyerhaeuser project to companies for industrial means and purposes, and I think this will have disastrous and catastrophic consequences. For one, the chemicals in the atmosphere will render the area uninhabitable to live in. Has the bureaucracy lost its conscience and succumbed to corporate greed to build a soulless industrial complex? I say yes to this query. If something is not done to counter this, it's the point of no return unless you reconsider the deal and construct the fish plant in another location. Please don't let this fall to deaf ears. Thank you.
Okay, Jill Payne, and then Rachel Wilson, and then Roger Flyger.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell and council and citizens. My neighbors, Chris and Steve, are here with me this evening in support of the Save Weyerhaeuser campus. I'm not a public speaker, so this is taking a big leap for me, so it's going to be brief. I just wanted to briefly say that we live across town from the property in the Twin Lakes area, so this situation isn't in our backyard, but it's very important to us. The land use is on my mind and is of concern. My son Jacob grew up running the trails with his cross-country team at Todd Beamer High School. I've taken my son to walk my teenage son to walk in the bonsai gardens. It's a special place. And I would like to ask the council and city not to allow the building permits on the forested land and to comply with the existing zoning and permitting. Lastly, unrelated to the campus, I did want to express my gratitude to the mayor and the council for funding and hiring of more police officers. Thank you.
Okay, Rachel Wilson, then Roger Flyger.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and community members. This is my daughter. She will be 3 years old next week. She and all the other children of the community and future generations are why we are here. We are here because she deserves better than the proposed fish processing plant. She deserves to not have semi-trucks driving through her neighborhood. She deserves to have every single tree on the former Weyerhaeuser property stay exactly where it stands today so that she can breathe clean air. She deserves to have the walking trails kept intact to jump in the mud puddles. Someday, when she's no longer afraid of dogs, she'll walk her dog through those trails I know it has been said that the trails will stay largely intact, and even if that is true, which is hard to believe, who would want to walk in the trails amid the processing plant and semi-truck noise and pollution? In the springtime, she deserves to see the lupins in the field. The same field where I marveled at the return of the lupins each year. She deserves to not have to endure one more drill at school to prepare for an ammonia leak. As a parent, I deserve to not have to worry about an evacuation and my children's health and safety when there is an ammonia leak. She and all of us deserve to live in a city that we are proud of. She is priceless. Her future is worth far more than any amount of money being waved under your noses by these large corporations who seek to destroy our city. Thank you.
Roger Flygare, and then Julie Cleary.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and community members here. It's a pleasure to address you about the Weyerhaeuser campus. Recently, I published a letter in over 30 newspapers regarding the campus and possibly developing that into a regional medical center. I thought this idea came to me because I serve as a VFW Post 1741 JAG and service officer, where I help people overcome medical problems by getting them to the places they need to go. I help them with legal problems too as the JAG officer. This is a great opportunity for us to seize because we're never going to see property like this again. In my efforts to outreach, I have talked to people. We're in the midst of having a conversation with General Alonza at a Joint Base Fort Lewis McChord. We're talking with Alfie Ramos from the Washington Department of Veterans Affairs. We're going to take that up to the national level as well. I'm going to scheduling an appointment with Governor Inslee. I've got a message out there to get that to happen. Patty Murray, Adam Smith, Norm Dix, who is very well known in Washington, D.C. for veterans issues. And I'm going to be talking to Tom Mesmer over here to see if I can get him to buy into this excellent opportunity to provide health services for veterans. And also, I thought we could roll into this a public health hospital or a public health clinic so that people who are under wage earners, that are homeless people, can have an opportunity to get medical care. For example, you know, at the VA hospitals in Seattle, the VA hospital American Lake, they're full. There's no place for people to go. The housing units at Orting and Retzel, they're full. No place for veterans to go. The other thing that this would bring to Federal Way would be quality, good-paying jobs at all levels of medical care. We need to have that. And along with that, as the earlier speaker talked about, some of the other aspects of a competent, fully staffed hospital would bring to this region. Internet technology and things like that. I just want to remind the council that a number of years ago, there was a planned level 5 sexual transition home slated for Federal Way. The city stood up for that and helped protect the citizens on that issue. We need to do that here again. Thank you.
Julie Cleary, and then Cindy Flanagan. And after Cindy, it's Sean Reed.
Okay, so I'm Julie Cleary. Start the timer. And I had a PowerPoint show tonight to show you, and Kathy was really nice. And if anybody would like to look at it, she printed it out here, and she did make copies for all the council people. So apparently, you need to have that approved if you guys ever get the idea that you want to do a PowerPoint slide presentation for your 3-minute talk.
So because I didn't really plan on talking, I was going to let pictures do my talking for me. The one thing that I had talked to Mr. Mesmer back in August, I was always curious why this preferred freezer was so large. It was gigantic. And I kept asking him, is Orca Bay going to be expanding their business that much? And this is how naive I am, because I didn't know any of these kind of things when we started back in the day, back in August. So the freezer space is going to be 4 times as large as what Orca Bay has right now. And they're not going to be increasing. He told me that. So what they're going to actually be doing is selling the space to other people. Duh, Julie. Well, it's going to be the state-of-the-art signature services 3PL. I never looked up what 3PL was, and I'm not in trucking. Do you guys know what 3PL is? It's a military term, and it's warehousing, distribution, and processing center, and it stands for, it's 3 things, whatever, processing, logistics. So, yeah, they don't know what else is going in there because they haven't sold the space yet, but they will be selling in the extra space, and then that means there'll be more trucks, and it won't be just the nice Orca Bay trucks that Mr. Mesmer told us about that have the nice, quiet, electric air-conditioned trucks. There'll be all kinds of trucks coming and picking up, and perhaps they'll be doing something called cross-docking, which I didn't realize there was such a term as cross-docking, but they just drop it off for like a week, and then a different truck comes and gets it. Or sometimes they drop off part of a load, and then they package it all together, and another truck comes and gets that and puts it all together and takes it to a place where it's supposed to go. So it's a service, and that's why the warehouse is going to be so large. That's why where Orca Bay is right now, it's almost 3 acres, but this new one's going to be 19 acres. The preferred freezer will have a square foot space of 314,424 square feet, but right now Orca Bay has 7,600, so that was quite a difference. But I couldn't do all the math while I was sitting at my chair, and I was trying to come up with something wonderful to talk to you about. So, future, check with the mayor first before you try to do a PowerPoint slideshow. Thank you.
Cindy Flanagan, and then Sean Reed.
And I have 5. Okay.
Yes. Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
Okay,
5
thank you.
minutes.
Glad I don't have PowerPoint. Good evening, all. My name is Cindy Flanagan, and I'm representing the Rainier Audubon Society. I would like to read the organization's statement about protecting the North Lake watershed. The dialogue that's begun amongst the city, the new owner, and the public about protecting the North Lake shoreline on the former Weyerhaeuser campus is promising. Water is our lifeline, and honing in on preserving and protecting our watershed is critical. We ask that the focus not be just to preserve the 200-feet buffer in the North Lake shoreline, but to preserve and protect the entire North Lake watershed that is on the former Weyerhaeuser campus. The North Lake watershed is not just important for feeding the North Lake. The North Lake watershed is the headwaters of the East Hylabos, which is the main branch of the Hylabos. Federal Way's much prized West Hylabos is a tributary that meets the East Hylabos in Milton. This water then flows through Fife, Puyallup tribal land, and Tacoma out into the Hylabos headwaters into Commencement Bay and the Puget Sound. There are key areas downstream and on the West Hylabos that have had major funding for salmon and wildlife restoration, as well as flood protection. The East Hylabos Ravine in Milton, the Fife Hylabos Nature Area, Federal Way's own West Hylabos, and the West Hylabos Waterway. If we can't provide good water and positive flow rates from our North Lake watershed headwaters, then all the work downstream is for naught. Approximately 115 acres, or more aptly about 1/3 of the North Lake watershed, is on the former Weyerhaeuser campus.
not only along the shoreline of North Lake, but also across Weyerhaeuser Way on and around the Technology Center. Except for the impermeable surfaces of the Technology Center, the North Lake watershed area is healthy, undeveloped second-growth forest that provides an intact, diverse, complex, and near-natural riparian zone that supports wildlife. We ask the city and IRG to critically look at and evaluate the cumulative impacts of the development on the North Lake watershed and to work towards protecting the North Lake watershed so that we can provide long-term healthy flow rates and strong water quality to the salmon and wildlife habitat areas of the North Lake and the High Labose. The North Lake is a small lake with a large watershed area, and because the watershed is so much greater than the area of the lake, the impacts of land use activity on the lake water quality are much greater. The Environmental Protection Agency states that a 7% alteration to a watershed will have negative impacts on both stream water quality and quantity. We must keep development on the former Weyerhaeuser campus North Lake watershed below 7% to maintain the North Lake's current assessment of mesotrophic and of good water quality. If the 44-acre mega warehouse property with the 70% impermeable surfaces had been built as cited on the North Lake watershed, the watershed alteration for that one development would have been approximately 7%, and that is for only one development. Not only do we need to keep development on the North Lake watershed to under 7%, we need low-impact development that employs storm drainage systems that are modeled after nature, such as rain gardens, and consider both natural and built components of the development site. The Upper East High Labose Arm, which includes the North Lake watershed and Lake Killarney, is one of the only areas that has not had major federal and state funding set aside to preserve or protect the salmon and wildlife habitat in the High Labose watershed. Partially, the reason is that for almost 50 years, Weyerhaeuser has done an outstanding job protecting this area, and therefore funds could be focused on other critical areas. Now is the time for us to move forward with a funding strategy that anchors county, state, and federal funding to help preserve the North Lake watershed. Broadening partnerships by including other stakeholders will create better opportunity to successfully protect the North Lake watershed, the High Labose watershed, and the Puget Sound that support salmon and wildlife. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Cindy. Sean Reed, and then, boy, I can't make it out, Ian Thompson, but we'll ask in just a minute. Okay,
Hi,
Sean?
I'm Sean. I don't have anything prepared for tonight, but I did come to add my voice and my family's voice to opposition of the warehouse development. And thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you very much, Sean. Last name Thompson, EA, is it, how do you, Ian? Okay. Okay. Sorry, Ian.
I didn't have anything prepared for tonight either. I just came to show my support for the Against the Weyerhaeuser project. I'm actually very concerned about the ammonia. I've worked at a cold storage plant before, and we had to go through various training sessions with what would happen if we had an ammonia fallout. So I'd like to know what studies have been done in regards to this Orca plant if there were an ammonia fallout or any kind of leak with our community.
Okay, thank you, and we'll ask Brian Davis in just a moment. Ian, did you have anything else? Thank you very much. Brian, you're certainly aware of the ammonia issue, and is that part of the review?
That would be part of the review that we're currently underway at the moment, and so the applicant would be as part of the criteria that the city has to make sure that development meets its development standards would be required to take a look at that.
Okay.
And submit that information to the city.
Was that part of the critical issues or the issues that we identified in that multi-page letter?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ian, for that comment. It's being considered. Joanne Paquette, and this is the November report, Federal Way Coalition of the Performing Arts. And then Richard Pearson. Hold on just for a second before we start Richard Pearson, Nancy Ueland. It's Ueland, right? Ueland, all right, darn it. Okay, Nancy Ueland and then Tom Mesberg. Joanne, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of the council. First, I'd like to say thank you to all who have done such amazing research on this. It has nothing to do with what I'm going to say, but congratulations. This is the November report of the Federal Way Coalition of the Performing Arts fundraising activity for the Performing Arts and Events Center. We are getting close to our $1 million goal, with the hope of reaching it by the end of December. We have many of the rooms and spaces named, including 4 dressing rooms, the green room, both meeting rooms, the box office, the refreshment stand, the elevator, and sound and lighting booth. And many seats are named, but there are still several available in both price categories, depending on location. And any donation is welcome, of course, and it's all tax deductible. And here are the current figures. We have received $898,705.59. The odd number is because of credit card fees, since several charged their donations. We also have pledges for $41,733.34, making our total $940,438.93.
Wow.
So,
congratulations.
Information on seat naming is on the back table, and we're urging people attending all the upcoming holiday concerts of our member groups to purchase seats as gifts for the person who has everything or is very difficult to gift. Something so unique and special, and it's not likely they already have one. While we have many talented performers in the coalition, one is exceptional. It's Ken Potter, director of Jet City's Chorus. And at our request, he composed and sang a jingle for us that we will utilize to promote naming a seat. Teresa, what do we do? What do I touch?
Right here.
Be the first to say, take a seat today, support the arts in Federal Way, Federal Way.
Wow.
So we will be utilizing this, adding copy to it and utilizing it in different ways in upcoming days. So that should help us reach our goal. Oh, by the way, we have a check for the city tonight for $20,316.59. And that amount was included in the figures I gave before. And we hope by next month's report, we will have at least the remaining $59,561 to reach the $1 million. And anyone who has been considering donating, now's the time, and pledges can be made to be paid in 2017. So,
great work, Joanne. Thank you very much. Looks like we're going to make that $1 million mark thanks to all the effort of you and your entire coalition. So thank you very much. Now we're going to hear from Richard Pearson. And after Richard, we've got Nancy Ueland.
Honorable Mayor and Deputy Mayor, respected council members, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, I'm not going to repeat my views as citizen on the application for a fish processing facility under the regulations and zoning at time of annexation, nor the health and safety risk to myself and family located only a block as a crow flies
or ammonia gas travels, nor the desirability of a moratorium to address the cumulative impacts of anticipated development on the former Weyerhaeuser corporate headquarters site. Tonight, I briefly want to bring to your attention collectively, as I have done with many of you individually and in small groups, the opportunity of preserving the west side of North Lake as a conservation reserve in city ownership and protection. This property, covered with second growth forests that will mature to old growth in time, along with currently existing old growth representations, is a legacy property for the city and the region. A property supporting drainage into the East Hylebos Creek uniquely qualifies this site as a contribution to clean water, salmon habitat, and represents the last example of undeveloped glacial moraine lake shore in South King County. In addition, it complements the already completed city acquisition and habitat preservation of the West Hylebos drainage and is supported by the city's 2007 Shoreline and Characterization Report. A property easily accessible to citizens of Federal Way through managed forest buffers along roads in the perimeter of the former Weyerhaeuser corporate headquarters site, as specified in the 1994 annexation agreement to downtown Federal Way, the Rhododendron Garden, and the Bosenside Collection. I look forward to the city and IRG's leadership in protecting this unique legacy property for current and future generations of Federal Way citizens. Thank you for your attention and interest in this unique opportunity. I remain available for further communications and work to acquire this legacy property. Respectfully submitted, Richard Pearson. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Nancy Ueland.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Ueland, but I'm starting to like the Olay. And I'd like to just give a shout out to our councilperson who's sick in the hospital. Please get well and come back soon. I'm going to talk tonight about a very unpleasant subject, bullies. Like a lot of people, I'm still in shock and despair over what happened last week. This latest presidential campaign was run on hate, anger, and stupidity, with attacks against people instead of ideas. Several of my friends and I were having dialogue about this, and we're doing a comparison about the same type of campaign that was run over 80 years ago in Germany. Even though racism and xenophobia were at the heart of this presidential campaign, in reality it was much deeper than that. This is about bullies. Bullies, men that bullied their way to the highest position of their own countries. And for the people that helped them, they drank the Kool-Aid. They drank the Kool-Aid. Now, bullies come in many shapes and sizes. They even come in corporations. It's my personal belief that IRG, along with Orca Bay Seafoods, are bullying their way into our neighborhood. This is the neighborhood where we live. This is where we raise our children, our grandchildren. We shop, we party, we have street block parties, we barbecue, we communicate, we spend money. This is our daily lives this is affecting. No corporation does that. The Orca Bay Corporation has no interest in the people that live in this environment. They have no association to this area whatsoever. I bet there's not one corporate leader down there that ever even knew where Federal Way was. And a seed processing plant has no place here in Federal Way, let alone in this beautiful campus on Weyerhaeuser. Yes, corporate bullies have more money. Yes, they have more attorneys. And yes, they have the ability to corrupt some politicians. And yes, they have all that. But we, the citizens that live in this neighborhood, we have more votes. Once again, this is nothing more than corporate greed coming into an environment that they have no connection to whatsoever to make a few people rich. I'd just like to read a quote from Daisaku Ikeda. He's one of the greatest humanitarians in the 20th and 21st century, and this is called Buddhism Day by Day, Wisdom for the Modern Life. And I quote, "A sense of being part of the greatest of all-inclusive life prompts us to reflect on our own place and how we ought to live. Guarding others' life, the ecology, and the earth is the same as protecting one's own life. But like the same token, wounding them is the same thing as wounding oneself. Consequently, it is the duty of each of us to participate as members of the life community in the evolution of the universe. We can only do this by guarding the Earth's ecological system. In conclusion, I'd just like to say, I may not have been able to stop a bully from getting into the White House, but I'm going to do everything I can to stop a bully from destroying my neighborhood. Please don't drink the Kool-Aid. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And now Tom Messmer and Carolyn Cole. And then Betty Taylor after that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, and Mark Kopang, if you're still there, get well soon. Maybe it's exactly what you were just saying. It's the election, and everyone hasn't worked well together. Or maybe it's the holidays, but I feel like, as I sit here tonight, I agree with so many things that people said, and I think we have much more common ground than we believe. In fact, I share with Julie Cleary tonight that I ran out not knowing what I was going to say, so I grabbed a zip drive full of pictures to put up on the screen to talk about. I know I can't do that, so I'm going to put those back in my pocket. I'm ad-libbing. I didn't know I had to ad-lib till Julie was up here. But let me, so I'm here and I'm agreeing with Lori Seacrest. I'm agreeing with Julie Cleary, and I'm agreeing with Richard Pearson on so many things as we sit here. Let me just talk about a couple of them quickly. Yeah, ammonia makes me nervous too, and we owe you an answer on that. We own several freezers that are powered by ammonia. We own others that are powered by the replacement to Freon. We owe you a lot of answers on the ammonia before we move forward on that. One of the things we have done is we have hooked Gordon, your fire marshal, up with the fire marshal and fire chief in the other communities that have freezers powered by ammonia so that they can understand what's been done there. And we hope he's made some progress there, but we do owe you answers there. We owe you answers on noise and air quality, which were part of the letter that Brian spoke about a minute ago. Brian and I spoke about that today. We owe you those answers. We owe them to you, as Brian and I spoke today about, on the data. So the number of trucks that we'll be studying will be based on preferred freezer, not Orca Bay. I mean, Orca Bay is one customer preferred freezer. We understand, and it's not my building, but we understand preferred freezer is 2 trucks an hour, which is 52 trucks a day. Orca Bay is some subset of that, but it'll be what it'll be, and the data will be what the data is, and we owe you the honest accounting for that, and that's what Brian and I spoke about today. I do agree with Lori Seacrest that there's an awful lot of that campus that needs to stay as it is. The pictures I was going to show today were 30 different photos of absolutely nothing that will change in our plans along the acreage that Dick Pearson talked about along the lake, which we'd like to preserve, that 40 acres. The total area inside the ring road, the way the building ends up in the landscape, the trees inside the ring road. Someone talked about the spring lupine. Nobody has plans to touch that piece of the meadow or the pond. The bonsai garden, my wife and I are members. I don't want to see that go away. I think there's a lot of things here that we agree on. I have to tell you, I was through the headquarters building on Friday. It's eerily empty. I too am sorry that Weyerhaeuser left Federal Way, but we can't bring them back. I wanted to say that I do think, though, as I sit here, I think we have more in common than we believe, and I think we're making a bigger separation than really exists, and that's just my feeling. And listen, everybody, thanks.
All right, thank you. Carolyn. Mr. Messmer, can you send us the pictures? Yeah. I'll send you the pictures. Can I present them if I make plans to present them next meeting? Sure. Just like Julie. So we just need to get these. Oh, good. Let's do that. Okay. I will send you the pictures. Yes. See you December 6th. All right. Now we've got Carolyn Cole and then Betty Taylor.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, and neighbors. My name is Carolyn Cole, and I'm actually here today to urge the city to take tangible actions to prevent hate crimes. As a first-generation American and woman of color, I'm very concerned for my safety, my family's safety, and for many of my neighbors.
Thank you, Council Member Sefa Dawson, for the personal invitation. And actually, thank you to the police department who quickly responded to my emails regarding this matter and invited me to participate in many ways. Thank you for that. The FBI defines a hate crime as a criminal offense against a person or property motivated in whole or in part by an offender's bias against a race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, or gender identity. In the wake of the recent election, hate crimes, particularly against immigrants, Muslims, people of color, and the LGBT community, have increased nationally. The Southern Poverty Law Center reports that there have been at least 201 incidents of election-related harassment and intimidation across the country as of Friday, November 11th. 201 incidents in 4 days. These hate crimes have ranged from vandalism and verbal epithets to physical assault. If you watch the news or monitor social media, these numbers actually might be greater, if not just at least feel greater and magnified. Hate crimes are dehumanizing because the crime strikes directly against a person's identity. It attacks directly their humanity. If we allow these hate crimes that may be actually occurring right now to stay under the radar, it actually just kind of emboldens people to do it more, creating a vicious cycle, breeding ground that will actually put every person in Federal Way at risk, not just the most vulnerable populations. I was told by Deputy Chief Sumter that we actually, thankfully, in Federal Way haven't seen an uptick in hate crimes, but I want to just say, if we could be really, realistic about crime statistics, they don't actually always accurately reflect real crime. There are many reasons a person might not report the crime. Those reasons may include the belief that the police will not de-escalate when they arrive on the scene, will not believe the victim, won't investigate, arrest, or maybe they're just too traumatized. Here are some National Crime Prevention Council suggestions that we can take up. Educate residents on how to respond and intervene. Begin a media campaign about tolerance, community standards. Counsel offenders that are part of hate groups. Adopt and share a clear protocol of how police are actually going to handle these types of calls, how they will treat the victims, and track hate crime data so that we understand what the final disposition is of these types of cases. Let's not wait for something bad to happen, for a tragedy to happen, because that just kind of invites large-scale conflicts in this community. Let's do something now while we can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carolyn. Betty Taylor.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to piggyback on something that Jenny said about life at Waterbury Park Apartments, because I live there too. I've lived there for the last 15 years I've been there. The apartment complex has gone through a lot of changes throughout the years. And one of the changes being within the last 3 years, we've had this population of residents that have moved in. Basically, because we had a manager at that time that that basically allowed this to happen. Company being what Jenny said is Matsu. Basically, I think the company is an agency that helps houses people with developmental disabilities, and they find housing for them. Well, basically, they have come to our complex. We've had a lot of problems throughout the years with the company and with the people, being as it seems like we have for myself, I and others don't feel protected. It's like this one incident where we had this one lady that would holler and scream off her balcony, and she would spit on people and cuss people out. We would call the police, and the police come, but the police said, we can't touch them. There's nothing they could do. We went to the apartment manager. They said, there's nothing we can do. Call the company. We called the company. There's nothing they can do. So basically, it's almost like you're living in a commune.
I have a neighbor of mine that lives below me that makes a lot of noise. It cusses and throws things and bams on the door and stomps his feet. And so I complain too, to the management. There's nothing they can do. What can they do? So who wants to live in an environment where you're not protected? You don't feel protected at all. You feel like you just don't feel protected. So basically, what Jenny was saying as she ended her conversation, and I heard the mayor say he would have somebody look into it. What does that mean? What is it going to look like? Because in the end, there's nothing nobody can do. So it's like when you have a disability, so, because of the law, the people are protected because of their disability. Basically, that puts a halt to anybody else that wants to say anything or do anything. You get stopped. So where is the fine line at? How can we all live together? Because when I moved in my apartment complex, I signed a lease. I have to abide by that lease. And everybody should abide by that lease. So if you have a disability, you should abide by that lease. But they don't abide by the lease. So, and it's just not fair. Not at all. So if you're going to look into it, look into it. Don't say it. Just do it. Take the steps necessary to look into it. Because it's no fun. And it's not a joke either.
All right. Thank you, Betty. Now, Ron Nowicki is present, and I see that it's for the budget meeting. Ron, did you want to give your talk now, or you want to wait till the budget?
I couldn't tell the difference between blue and yellow. I apologize.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want to just talk now, or do you want to wait till we get to the budget? Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Well, that's the last pink sheet I have. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? All right. Thank you very much. I just want to say before we move on, I'm proud to live in a city that have people as passionate as we have here, and thank you so much for all of your comments. They do matter, and I think we listen to every word that you say, and we really appreciate your passion, your love for your city, and we're doing our best here, and we've got a new community development director, and we'll do everything we can. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. That doesn't mean the meeting's over, but in regard to a lot of folks that are here. Now we're going to move on to the consent agenda. We've got a bunch of other things on our agenda. Item 5 lists items A through M. And I'm going to go ahead and read those items, and then I'll ask council, after I've done that, whether there's any particular item that they want pulled for separate consideration. So here we go. Item A, minutes for the November 1st, 2016 regular and special meetings. Item B, resolution, Norpoint Heights final plat. Item C, 21st Avenue South Sidewalks Improvement Project, South 320th Street to South 316th Street, 100% design status report and authorization to bid. Item D, Marine Hill Stormwater Conveyance System Repair Phase 2, 85% design status report and authorization to bid. Item E, authorization to accept the King County Flood Control District Flood Reduction Grant. Item F, boy, we got a lot of items on the agenda tonight. Item F, Marine Hill Stormwater Conveyance System Repair Phase 1 project acceptance. Item G, new street lighting prioritization criteria. Item H, 2017 street sweeping services contract bid award. Item I, 2017 right-of-way landscape maintenance contract bid award. Item J, Washington Traffic Safety Commission's WTSC Target Zero Team TZT intra-agency funding agreement 2016 and 17. Item K, Second Amendment for Urban Forestry Services. Item L, Second Amendment for Landscape Maintenance Services. And item M, Northwest Playground Equipment Incorporated retainage release. Now, these items have already gone through committee. They can be passed in a vote in a single vote. But before I seek a motion for that, is there any council member that would like to pull an item for separate consideration? Okay, hearing none. Deputy Mayor Burbidge, do you have a motion?
I do, thank you. I move approval of items A through M on the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Mark, we heard you. Good job. All right, now, moving on to the public hearing. Let's see here. Now, I would note that we've got the public hearing, and then we've also got, in which we've got the ordinance's first reading for that biennial budget. Now, during the course of the biennial budget first reading, we will have a staff presentation by our finance director at that time, and we'll go through that process. So, I will reopen the public hearing, continued from November 1st. We've got one public comment on the budget process, and that's from Mr. Nowicki. So Ron Nowicki, who I should note is a president of the Lake Haven Board, but I believe he's here in his personal capacity. You tell us, Ron.
Right, I am here in my personal capacity.
Yes, sir.
The board, board hasn't voted, hasn't done anything, so I have to speak only for myself.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members, I want to thank you for the options and the view that you had at the study session and the various options. I'm here tonight again to speak in favor of not imposing a utility tax. It's better to speak in favor of something than not doing that. And so in favor of keeping, little bit of history here. 2009, some of the other members that are still on the council, we negotiated a franchise agreement. 2009, it was a 5-year agreement. It expired January 1, 2015. We got a year's extension on that agreement, and we worked through that year, and into the other 6 months, we now have a franchise agreement that started July 1 of this year. I think it's a good agreement. It's one that's been worked out, and so I speak in favor of keeping that going. You also had a franchise agreement with the city of Tacoma, which is about 4 or 5 years old. The imposition of a utility tax will go against both of those franchise agreements. The city of Tacoma franchise agreement, who supplies the water in the Twin Lakes area, has one that says there will be no utility tax. Ours says that if there's a utility tax, we no longer pay the franchise fee. So, I mean, this has been, if I say, gone over with all of those, with the people before. I did go back and check on streetlights, and we gave over to the city 1,812. One of those things to remember, that's the war, never mind, 1,812 streetlights. Approximately 60 of those we think are wrong. And we've been talking with staff now. They are lights that may be on public property and not in a right-of-way, so they should not be putting into the city. So we're still looking at those things too. The last thing I had for you was, normally when you start looking at options and budgets and stuff like that, there's two basic simple options. One is to raise revenue, the other one is to cut spending. I'd like to perhaps to look at, as you do your deliberations, and I really do appreciate you looking at all the options. If it's 9 officers that are needed, is it advisable to do 333 over 3 years rather than 2 years? Would you extend things? So what I'm saying is the third option that people don't look at for budgeting sometimes is a reprioritization or a changing of the timelines. That's what you're looking for. So with that, I want to thank you again for looking at the options. I'm in favor of keeping the franchises as they are, which means no utility tax. It makes that very clear. And thank you very much for considering the options. That was it.
Right. Oh, perfect timing. And Ron, I just want to say thank you so much for not only coming tonight, coming to the last meeting, making yourself available to the council to talk. I hope you stick around for a few minutes. My hope is you'll be pleased with how this conversation turns. But if you could, we're gonna do this conversation here pretty quickly. Okay?
Yeah. If there's questions or anything else, and I do appreciate you looking at all those options. Thanks much.
And thank you for your partnership, Ron.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now, is there anybody else who'd like to comment on where we're at with the city budget? We can always fill out the pink sheet at a later time. I would like to recognize that we have State Representative Linda Kochmar in the room. Linda, thank you very much for being here. Okay, moving on to, is the Councilmember Duclos, do you have a motion?
Yes, I move to close the public hearing on the proposed 2017-2018 biennial budget and the 2017 property tax.
Is there a second?
Second.
And before we actually do the motion and second, So we've got that motion out there, but I forgot to ask for council discussion. Council, is there any discussion before we actually close the public hearing? We do have the first reading, and we're going to have an opportunity for discussion after that. So the closing of the public hearing does not affect our ability to debate, when we get to that section. Councilman Miranda?
Thank you. How did you know I was going to talk?
Because you looked at me like you were. Yeah.
You can read my mind. So we will still be able to discuss this, but we're going to choose to do it at a later time.
Yeah, we're going to do it under item 8. I know I looked at this as well, and I almost was going to ask Ade Arwulu to do his presentation, but we've got it set under first reading to do that whole discussion.
All right.
Okay. And that's when he'll give his PowerPoint. So that being said, council, any other discussion on that? All right. So there's been a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. Okay. The matter passes. At least at this stage, the public hearing in regard to the biennial budget is closed. But again, we have that discussion. Now moving on to item 7, council business, grant funding for transportation improvement projects, authorization to accept grant funding. First, we'll have a staff report. I see Rick Perez, our senior traffic engineer, and Marwan Saloom approaching the podium. Rick?
Thank you. So, yes, this project that we're proposing to accept the grant funding for is what we call 21st Avenue South Extension pedestrian connection from South 314th Street to South 316th Street, or the grand staircase associated with Town Center 3. So the policy question is, should the City Council authorize staff to accept the 2016 Regional Mobility Grant Funding Program for a Transportation Improvement Project? This is providing the status of that grant application. King County had specifically asked the city to submit a grant to help mitigate the overflow parking situation at Federal Way Transit Center. So we were looking at ways to try and encourage walkability to the transit center from major pedestrian generators, which would include the Performing Arts and Event Center. So we proposed this project as that, and so King County is awarding this $500,000 towards that effort, and we estimate that project cost at $3 million. We are proposing the match to be obtained from both the developer contribution for the hotel in TC3, the local infrastructure financing tool, and annual transportation safety fund, REIT, or transfers from completed capital improvement projects. So options are to accept staff, or authorize staff to accept the grant funding under this regional mobility funding program for the 21st Avenue pedestrian connection from 314th to 316th Street, or do not accept the grant fund and provide direction to staff. And the mayor's recommendation is option 1 for approval.
Rick, in regard to just people being able to walk back and forth for the transit center, can you give any other background in regard to why clearly we would have to come up with a 2,500. Can you explain what some of the benefits would be? Maybe let's walk through some pros and some cons.
Sure. So, the big thing right now is we've got the Performing Arts Center. We're proposing to, develop Town Center 3, and, the existing wall on the north side of 316th Street creates an obstacle to that. And so this was a way to help facilitate the connections. It would be a staircase. It would also, have several architectural elements to provide visual interest. But in addition, there would be an ADA accessible ramp to provide that connection, and then some pedestrian crossing improvements across South 316th Street. So the idea is essentially to improve that connectivity without people having to get in their car to get from point A to point B. In addition to providing improved access to the transit center, it also provide a pedestrian connection to Town Square Park and the rest of the city center area. So, downside, I guess I would say, it's a challenging connection to make because you've got to tear down an existing wall to provide this connection. But I think overall, the intent of improving that pedestrian connection will reduce the need to provide additional roadway capacity, making it easier for folks to walk around instead of drive around.
Okay. All right, council, I see several lights on. Councilmember Moore, Deputy Mayor Burbidge, do you have any comments?
Councilmember Moore?
Do you have any?
I thank you for your presentation, Rick, and I would just concur with you in that this grand staircase solves a number of challenges, in particular that transition from the level where the Town Square Park is, which is so heavily used and loved, up to the upper level there. And the wall has been a barrier. The staircase would allow pedestrians to make their way up and also provide some elements that are quite attractive for anyone who has seen any of the drawings that have been put together so far of the proposed staircase.
I see that there's the city's responsibility to be 25. Could you go back a couple slides? There was something I wanted to, before I would call the next speakers are going to be Councilmember Honda and Councilmember Asefa Dawson. Can you explain real quickly what a LIFT, local infrastructure financing tool, and city fund, what available options there are in regard to, and what the timing would be in which we would have to provide that funding?
Yes, Mayor, I could definitely do that. I'm gonna go to a different slide to give you a little bit of where that project costs come from. What you're looking here at that slide, you're talking about a total project cost of about $3 million. The design of that project, about $2 million, right-of-way acquisition, about $500,000, construction in 2017, about $1.8 million. We're having 20% contingency since we have not even started the design as of yet. That's $360,000. And construction management is about $140,000. Where that money is going to come from at the present time, we're looking at a grant funding, and that's what before the council is the acceptance of that grant of $500,000. The second item is a LIFT, Local Improvement Finance Tool, Local Infrastructure Financing Tool. This is the city center have been designated as an area where the tax, the sale tax the city paid to the state could come back to the city if there is infrastructure improvement within that city center area that's going to be able to bring business and generate tax within that area. The challenge is that program implemented in 2009, and as of today, we have not been capitalizing on that. We normally get about $1 million matching fund, which means that the project have to be about $2 million. The city will pay half of it, $1 million, and you will be able to get $1 million from the state. In 2015, we're going to be able to recover some of the costs, but prior year, we have not been able to recover that cost. So you really need to look at that just like a grant. You have to be able to get it, and if you don't get it within that year, you lose that money. So if you do not have any project identified for 2017, we are not going to be able to receive that money. So you're talking about $1.5 million of grant, potentially, if that project does not move forward, you're going to lose. The other part that we were banking on is traffic impact fee, that the developer of the hotel was willing to pay toward the project $1 million for his share for the hotel and for TC3, where he will be able to recover it when TC3 develop. Without having the hotel there today, without having the developer of the hotel ready to develop today, that potential dollar amount in question But again, what you're looking at here is it's coming from traffic impact fee. That area and other area in the city will be developing, and they will be paying traffic impact fee that could come in toward that project. Under that scenario, we were looking at the city is going to contribute $500,000. And that $500,000 is going to be coming in either from Transportation System Safety Fund, which at the present time, the city dedicated that fund for pedestrian improvement. And some of the project we have throughout the city for pedestrian crossing, it's coming from that fund. It's a 0.5% sales tax, 0.5 cent sales tax that we come from tax, from gas tax. Other possibility that if there is available REIT fund that could be used for that project, or transfer from capital improvement project. So as you could see, most of the money, or actually all of the money for that project, cannot be used as for any purpose. They are specially directed fund for transportation, or transportation for the left. It's transportation or infrastructure improvement within the city center area. So that's what we're looking at, and I hate to see us losing about $1.5 million if that project doesn't move forward. The challenge also for us not getting the grant, we have a reputation in the grant funding agency that we apply for a grant, we know what to apply for, we get the money, we get it done, we get it done in time, we get it done on budget. And that's the reason we've been very successful in getting the grant. I hate to see us applying for a grant and all of a sudden refuse to receive the grant. The transit center or the transit, King County Transit doesn't issue too many grants, but I assure you that everybody else will hear exactly what have transpired, and that may affect us in the future of getting grant for our transportation infrastructure.
Okay. Councilmember Honda and then Councilmember Asafa-Dawson.
Thank you. I have a note from Councilmember Maloney to read, and then I'd like to make my own statements. Dear Mayor, City Council, and Federal Way residents, I would like to propose the city not accept the grant funding for the transportation improvement project at this time, since it is for the ground staircase. It would require the city to utilize lift money for the project, which I believe could go to other infrastructure projects in the downtown core. Thank you, Kelly Maloney, City Council Member, Position 2. I have some questions since I've listened to the presentation. Did I hear correctly that we will expect people to park their cars in other areas other than the transit center and then walk to the transit center? Is that one of the purposes of the staircase?
Again, the purpose of the staircase is connectivity, making sure that we have pedestrian connectivity. Where people's going to be parking. Again, when you have an event at the PAC, we have parking area at the PAC, but you're going to have hopefully some people parking at the transit center, and they're going to go and walk to the PAC. You're going to have people from the PAC would love to see them going and shopping within the city of Federal Way, going to restaurant within the city of Federal Way. And the staircase is going to give them more of a better connectivity to be able to get into the downtown area. So that's what you are seeing, and that's the benefit of that staircase. And that's the reason we were able to sell it to King County Transit, as that connectivity made a lot of sense to them.
Okay, I guess what I heard was that King County liked the idea because the transit center is full and people could use other areas to park in and walk to the transit center. Did that not?
Can you say that again?
The transit center is full, which we all understand and know that. And that King County liked the grand staircase idea because folks could park and walk, use the staircase from where they park their cars to get to the transit center. Is that not what?
I will let Rick answer that, but I'll just take a crack at it. I think what King County Transit wanted to see, more pedestrian walking into the transit and taking the buses as much as they can. now. Are they parking in places other than the parking garage? Yes, they are, because the parking garage is always full. Are they authorized to park at the PAC when the PAC get developed? Most likely not, but that has to be, it could be an agreement between the city and Sound Transit where we exchange parking. During the day, they might be able to park at the PAC. At night, we'll be able to park at the transit center. That has not been developed as of yet. But I don't know what Reg have, he's the one who have had that communication with King County Transit, and let's see if he have anything else to add.
Well, Marwan pretty well captured it. The whole idea is by improving connectivity, you don't have to jump in your car. So if folks were already in the city center area, and they may have parked someplace else, they may be taking, walking to the transit center, but also the folks that, could potentially use transit to come to city center and walk to destinations within city center from the transit center rather than drive to downtown. So the whole idea is more on a systematic level to encourage people to use transit and walk rather than drive.
Okay. So the lift funds, when we talked about this previously, we talked about the lift funds being used for multi-years.
I'm sorry, do you mind repeating the question?
When we talked about using the lift funds before for this project, we talked about it, using lift funds for this year, next year, and possibly the third year. Is that still?
For this project?
Right.
Yeah, all depends on when the project go to construction. If the project go to construction in 2017 and we spend the entire amount in 2017, then you'll be able to capture the money, the $1 million in 2017. As I mentioned earlier, we get $1 million a year. So if you are able to spend all of that money in that year, you are able to recover that $1 million. If the project expand for more than 1 year, if it's a 2-year project, as a matter of fact, if we design it in 2017, start the construction in 2017, you might be able to recover $1 million in 2017 and some money in 2018, because again, you have to have the matching fund. The project total cost $3 million. So potentially you could go up to 1.5 million for lift. The program that we have here, or the funding mechanism we have, we are only identifying $1 million for lift. If we're able to stretch the project over a 2-year period of time, we might be able to go all the way up to $1.5 million from lift, which is $1 million in 2017 and $500,000 in 2018.
So for using lift money, we have to have matching funds?
You have to have 50-50. The total project, as an example, if you have a $2 million project, the city will spend $1 million and you'll be able to recover $1 million from lift.
Is this in our budget?
The project is identified in our CIP program, that's correct.
Capital budget.
So
Not operating.
it's in the 2017, 2018 budget?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
So is it my understanding that the grand staircase is not designed yet?
That's correct. We have not started the design on the project.
How do we know, and I've asked this before, how do we know it's going to cost $3 million?
Definitely, when we start the design, we could refine that number. This is a pure engineering estimate based on our staff and the developer. Actually, the developer of the hotels gave us an estimate what he thinks the project is going to be. We verified that estimate. We increased it a little bit based on the time of construction for that project, and the project being a government managed project rather than privately managed project. There will be additional costs based on pay and prevailing wage and so on and so forth. But our estimate of about $3 million, as I said, I believe I could show you exactly where the...
We've had schematics drawn. Is that, haven't we had some renderings provided?
Yes, there is rendering provided on that.
While you're looking for that, can I ask another question?
Sure.
What is the hotel going to be putting into this?
How much money the hotel is going to
Right.
put into this? The part of the original estimate for the project was $1 million. That's going to be coming in from the transportation impact fee that they were going to be paying the city. So in lieu of paying the city, they will pay it toward that particular project.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Sefadossin?
Thank you. Actually, my questions were answered.
All right, great. Deputy Mayor Burbidge, do you have a motion?
I do. I move to authorize staff to accept the regional mobility grant and execute any required documents.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Mark, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right. There's been a motion and a second. I've called for discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
All right. Stephanie?
Deputy Mayor Burbidge,
Aye.
Councilmember Sefadossin,
Aye.
Councilmember Honda,
Nay.
Councilmember Kopeng,
Aye.
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Duclos.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1.
Okay. And, all right, now, moving on to item B, cancellation of December 20th, 2016 regular council meeting. There is no staff report. This is the longstanding practice in our city government not to have the second meeting on the week of, which usually falls right around the Christmas time. For this motion, I will turn to our Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I move to suspend Council Rule 2.11 and cancel the December 20th, 2016 City Council regular meeting.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of canceling the second meeting in December per normal course, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Okay, now moving on to the proposed 2016-18 collective bargaining agreement with the Federal Way Police Guild. We'll have a staff report from Acting City Attorney Mark Worthman, and we'll go from there. Mark?
This will be really brief. Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor, council members. In front of you is the proposed agreement with the Police Guild, which is the result of negotiations and mediation that's been occurring since September of last year. And it stays within the parameters that were authorized by council and has been ratified by the Guild. So it's been voted on by the Guild already. It would go into effect retroactively to January 1, 2016 through December 31st, 2018. And that's all I have to present on that.
All right. Deputy Mayor Burbidge?
Thank you. I move approval of the proposed agreement with the Federal Way Police Guild.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Oh, Councilmember Moore.
Yes, I'd like to thank the legal department and the mayor's administration and doing a good job in handling this and making sure that there's agreement on both sides. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. All right. Council members, any other comments?
I was going to say thank you also.
Well, thank you.
Well, not to you, but
Oh, okay.
well, you are the boss. But other than that,
We worked hard on that. All right. Thank you very much, and
I
thank you, Mark.
I think everybody is thankful that we've got this finished.
And all kidding aside, I think I would like to thank our bargaining units. We've got Jean Stanley, our HR person, who was there during all of the negotiations. Jean, how long did this take? Of last year. Yeah. So it's been a lengthy process. This is obviously a lot of folks who work in our department, a lot of things going on, changeover in healthcare, and a lot of details. So I just like to, and we've got outside negotiators and outside counsel that helped us with this. So, Mark, thank you very much for you and all of staff's work in getting this resolution. That being said, there's a motion and a second, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, matter passes unanimously. Thank you, Mark. All right, now it's time for the 2017 Legislative Agenda Draft Discussion. We've got a staff report from Steve McNay, Community Affairs Coordinator, Community Outreach Coordinator, and I would like to reiterate that this is just a preliminary discussion of our legislative agenda, and that the purpose of this is to get feedback. And so this is not etched in stone. We want to hear the feedback of council. We did get feedback from council after Steve initiated contact, but again, this is a draft, and it's on for final approval, for your final approval next council meeting. So with that, Steve, please proceed.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, members of the audience. This is the draft legislative priorities. I think it's important to note that this is the City of Federal Way's one voice priorities, speaking on behalf of not only the City Council, but also the executive branch. So we have a background. The background is on an annual basis, the City of Federal Way produces a list of legislative priorities that affect legislation and regulations that relate to the interest of the City of Federal Way as a whole. This year's legislative priorities define areas of interest such as transportation, law enforcement, as well as some community development needs like addressing those without shelter, as well as some backing for the mayor's homeless services encampment initiative. So, getting started. Starting with law enforcement. The City of Federal Way in this draft would encourage the legislature to continue to maintain high-quality statewide funding and training for personnel. Our specific ask would be for $250,000 and a capital ask for Safe City cameras. Now, we have a great Safe City camera program in the City of Federal Way, but some of those cameras are getting a bit old. Talking to our IT department, some of those were installed as far back as 2008. So we have much better technology today, much better cameras. We know with some of the issues we faced with crime this year that those cameras come in quite handy. This would allow us to replace the old ones and get new coverage areas, which would be very helpful, and it's a very helpful tool for law enforcement. Next, on to the community development needs. As you can see, we've got the a general ask for funding. There are a couple things that we're looking at here. Councilmember Honda and the mayor had a meeting recently talking about perhaps securing some capital funds for a homeless youth facility. We have no place for our homeless youth to go. And so something like that would be run in coordination with Auburn Youth Resources. They used to have, I believe, 12 beds down in Auburn. We'd be looking at something, either purchasing a new facility or utilizing an existing facility for that to be a place for homeless youth to check in, get to a safe spot, and be able to get into services quickly. We would also be looking for a ask for some backup funding because of the cost of cleaning up these homeless camps. Some of them are quite hazardous with needles and propane tanks and some other unsightly material on the property. So in addition to getting additional funding for our day center, making sure that that's run, finding the housing solutions we're looking for, this is more of a general ask to see about talking to the legislature and working with our representatives and Senator Malosha to put together something that would help us with that. Next, on to the Performing Arts and Events Center. This is a very specific ask. It's a $1 million capital funds ask for the kitchen. We have a kitchen in place. We would like to seek the funding so that we can pay. This is not in excess of the budget that has been allotted for the PAC. This would be included in the budget. It's a $1 million ask. That kitchen will be used in coordination with the Muckleshoots for the Culinary Institute. So we're looking for something of that nature to help us with some funding of the PAC. Next, on transportation, this one is a little bit more tricky. I'm going to kick it over to Director Saloom. Marwan, would you like to give a little quick update on this?
And Marwan, please just do it from there.
Mayor and Deputy Mayor and Council, the ask for the transportation is mainly for the city center access project. I don't know if some of the council may remember. The last time it was before the council was April of 2009, where the environmental document was presented to the council with the alternative. There was 3 alternatives presented to the council. One, to have the additional access to I-5 at 312 or 324 or no action, and the council at that time elected to go with the no action. And since 2009, the project was shelved. At the present time, we have 324th as being the preferred alternative. What we would like to do is go back to the environmental document, update the environmental document, and go back and have the council make a decision on which alternative and we are hoping that'll be 324th access to I-5. For us to do that, this project identified in our capital program and identify that the need is $2.5 million. What we are hoping for is to get $1 million from the state, and the city share would be $1.5 million.
All right, Brian, did you have something to add? Okay, sorry. I'm not good at sign language, sorry. All right, Steve.
Okay. All right, next is the University Initiative. Obviously, we've done a needs assessment for the University Initiative. What we'd like to do, the council, you're aware of the ongoing conversations with both WSU, Go Cougs, and University of Washington, Tacoma. And so what we'd like to do is seek the legislature's support in this endeavor and to go ahead and make this a priority so we can see this project come to fruition. Public records reform, always a big item. The Association of Washington Cities, again, is backing public records reform. We're backing it with them. We're recommending to back it with them to streamline that process so that we can be more efficient and remain transparent as a government.
And I just want to go back on that, and it's not the regular run-of-the-mill public records request. I think we've got like 30 or 40 or 36 pending right now. Those aren't the problem.
No.
The problem is potentially where you've got cities, City of Seattle, a number of cities in the Puget Sound area have received records requests in which every public document ever generated in the history of the city has been requested. And it's completely onerous. In fact, actually, the city of Des Moines, had to turn over a warehouse just basically allow somebody to have access to a warehouse. So it's this abusive process of that public disclosure request in which, literally you have to hire a team of people, and it would take who knows how long to complete. So it's just an abuse of a law. There's just no limitation set on it. Did Councilmember Duclos?
Yeah, I want to speak in favor of this. When I was on the board for Sound Cities Association, they got hit with requests for every document they had.
Yeah.
And that's a small organization, and it takes staff time. They had to pull one person full-time for several weeks to do it. They got it all ready, they notified the person never came to pick it up.
Right.
It was a harassment thing, and people have been doing that to cities. We don't want to not give out public information, but when you do that, that costs you as citizens a lot of money to pay a staff person working full-time every day, doing nothing but making copies, and 9 times out of 10, they're never picked up.
That's right. Yeah, so that's really what we're really talking about, the completely absurd and abusive
It's
requests.
debilitating for cities that are over 100 years old to try to
That's right.
get every document.
And we don't really have anything like that pending, but there are, every now and then, there are these circumstances.
Right.
All right, Steve, go ahead.
The next is to ensure that the legislature fully support the Municipal Research and Services Center. This is a vital organization that cities rely on to get information, and we want to make sure that they continue with their funding. So this is where we're looking to start, but I have questions and input. I know that with talking to some of the council members, that we've looked at some other options. I know, Deputy Mayor, you had some questions earlier today, perhaps for funding, and some different questions, so I'm open. I'd like direction.
All right, Councilmember Honda.
Thank you. Thank you for including the ask for capital funds for a Center for Homeless Youth here in Federal Way. Currently, AYR has an outreach program, but our kids aren't getting down to Auburn, and we have a number of homeless youth. We don't know the number yet, and we probably never will have an accurate number, but we know that they are here and we need to serve them. I have a couple more things I'd like to talk about. One, the ask for the $1 million in capital funds for the kitchen upgrade. I've been told that the kitchen is being provided by the company or the organization who's going to be doing the program for the Native Cooking School. Is that not correct?
You know what? I knew you were going to ask this, and I had Teresa. Is Teresa in the room?
I don't see her.
Teresa Lee?
She's right there.
Oh, there she is.
Ah,
I had her actually look at this language because I knew this
Okay.
question was going to come.
Right.
Teresa, step right up. So we were talking about this issue about the legislative ask for the kitchen. Yes. And so I had a feeling this issue would come up because there's been so much discussion about this. So while you're in the room, Susan, can you ask the question again?
I thought in our discussion that you and I had that the kitchen is being provided by the company or organization that is the school for the cooking.
The kitchen equipment? No. The kitchen, no.
So we're a kitchen up, what is
There's
the
a
kitchen
third-party
upgrade?
vendor that will operate the kitchen, but the kitchen equipment is part of the capital.
So the kitchen upgrade is what's a kitchen upgrade? I thought the whole kitchen was I thought it was gonna be a complete kitchen in the
It
plan.
is gonna be a complete kitchen.
So what,
It's a full culinary kitchen.
Okay, so let's explore the space for just a second. May I?
Sure.
Quickly. So Teresa,
So-
explain for a second. We've got the capital facility, we've got the people that are operating the food service that we'll contract with, and then we've got the Muckleshoot Culinary Institute that will be using us. How do these interplay together, and how will this legislative ask help us? Is that,
Well,
right,
okay,
is that, okay, so.
that's the question.
So basically what happened when you voted, when I first got here and you voted to upgrade the kitchen from a catering kitchen to a full culinary kitchen, there's an expense to that.
right.
So we went from being just the minimum that you could have in a kitchen to absolutely being a full culinary kitchen and having everything that we needed to build and make our food in that kitchen.
As opposed to a warming kitchen.
Yes, as opposed to the food being made 5 miles away and being put in a warmer and brought to our warmers and then served. So we will be able to make all the food there on site. That operation will be operated, the food service, the making of the food will be done by a third-party vendor. So we will hire a company that will do that. We will also have the Culinary Institute in partnership with the Muckleshoots. And part of the responsibility with the third-party vendor is that those students will be able to move through that kitchen as they move through the education program.
So is this in the PAC budget already? We're just requesting funds for it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. My next request is public health.
Yes.
I'm on the board of the King County Board of Health, and at our last meeting, we had a report on the fact that the public health departments around the state are going to be going to the state legislature and asking for, I'm going to read this. They're going to have a resolution calling for the legislature to recognize that public health is essential and to provide funding to support core services. And apparently the public health departments have gotten together throughout the state and have defined what core services are. I was told at that last meeting that what's suburban Sound Cities was asking all of the King County cities to put this into their legislative agendas. So I'd like to look into that to see if we could do that.
We can get that language.
Okay.
Well, I've got a board meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And I'll get that language from Deanna Dawson, their executive director. I'll get it to Steve, and I'll get it to the rest of you. And I think that's an easy amend. That's an easy ask. So, was it, council, are we supportive of that? Council?
The
Any
Board of
opposition to
Health
that?
will be voting on Thursday to support this resolution also.
Sure, that's easy to amend.
Okay, great. Remind
And-
me to get that language from Deanna.
Just a couple other things.
All right.
I'd like to see if we could explore asking for some funding to look into Dumas Bay and what we could do to develop Dumas Bay into the treasure we know that it could be, and possibly Brook Lake property also. I remember last year when we had our legislative breakfast, the school district was there, and we did not have an education component on our list. And I don't know how that would fit in, but we might want to look into that.
Well, we're actually, it's funny you say that. We've spent a lot of time talking about that. I talked about that at management team. We hire a lobbyist and to handle city issues. And I don't know if the school district does that, but, we have a certain narrow, obviously we've got a varied legislative district. We are going to be inviting them to be at our legislative breakfast, but, they're a separate and distinct government.
Right.
If they're willing to pay for a portion of our lobbying services. That's one thing. We've never discussed that. But I've anticipated this because I know they'll likely show up to the legislative breakfast and say, where are education issues? Well, those originate out of the school district, not the city council and not the city. So while we're supportive, they need to have their own legislative agenda. And so I've actually anticipated that and been thinking about that. And everybody here is wondering why I have, but I had a feeling that this was a discussion. So I think, next time I talk to Tammy, we'll talk about this. Maybe there's some things where we can talk with our lobbyists and be on the lookout for those issues about parity with school funding and those kinds of things. But I think that we need to work in conjunction with their legislative agenda, not just have them take over ours.
Okay, and then my last item that I'd like to,
Actually, Councilmember Duclos.
I just wanted to support Councilmember's statement about Dumas Bay. I would like to get some capital funds from the state legislature to make improvements to Dumas Bay.
Yeah, I think that is the future, and that's, all right, go ahead, Councilmember.
thank you for that. I'd like to explore if we could find some funding to purchase a green space around North Lake. There's been talk about the conservatory portion of North Lake, and as a city, if we could start asking for funding for that, it would be amazing. It would just make me smile. So.
Okay.
That's it.
I would second that motion.
Well, we're actually looking at the possible utilization of surface water management funds by the city. Actually, I had a meeting today in which we were talking about that. I've talked to King County Councilmember Pete Von Reichbauer. I've had conversations as much as this week and last week with Marwan Saloom, our Public Works Director, about the utilization of surface water management funds, which has been used for property acquisition around the Hyalbus because of, and making sure that we've got those. So that actually is something that is right on the burner. But what we also need to do is figure out what that total cost is. We could probably possibly leverage up to $1 million of surface water management funds and get King County Conservation District to maybe leverage another $1 million, but we need to figure out what that overall price tag is. So we'll be moving and making sure that we check with the legalities of surface water management funds to capture as many funds as we can and work with IRG to do that. But we need to know what the delta is between the difference between surface water management funds, King County Conservation funds, and then what the appraised value is. And Tom Messmer with IRG has committed to getting a very recent appraisal. But that would be something, because we really need to, I think we're all in agreement, securing that area west of North Lake is something that we've been talking about actually well before IRG bought the property. So that's a great ask. We need to know what that total number is, though.
I did ask Mr. Mesmer what the appraised value was of that property, and he suggested that the city get an appraisal, and I suggested that he do it first. So
I saw an email from him a week ago, Councilmember, in which he had agreed for them to do so.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so Steve, let's put that up, if you could, earmark that for discussion in addition to our legislative agenda. Deputy Mayor Burbidge?
Thank you. I would just add to that the possible opportunity, and this has been mentioned before, I'm not bringing it up for the first time, the conservancy organizations, Forterra and others, that might be able to partner with us and bring in some outside money as well.
That's right. Forterra is an excellent organization. And they were actually very instrumental in saving that golf course up in Bothell with all that business that happened up there.
Okay.
Okay. Council, any other? Councilmember Safadasa.
Mine is already taken, but just to add to, one was supporting our public schools for the same reason that you mentioned. So it may not be taking over their legislative agenda, but just to say we support whatever it is that they have for their public schools, I think would be great. And then to add to the homelessness issue, I really appreciate that we're talking about youth, but also we still do have a lot of homeless people in our community. So to really prioritize, I like what you said here, and to really emphasize how important it is for our city to support the homeless issue in our city very strongly, so.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Burbidge?
Thank you. One other item that has been alluded to during our budget process is the challenge we have because our property tax rate as a city is so extremely low compared with other comparable cities. And I've heard the cap on the property tax actually mentioned by other cities as well, and would like us to consider at least the possibility of discussing this with the legislature.
That's right.
Okay.
So Steve, what we are going to do is, what I'm going to propose to do from the feedback that we've heard from several council members, is add a section in regard to schools about seek for ways to assist our school district in legislative priorities. But then, Brian, if you could, maybe tomorrow, we'll talk about this, about reaching out to Tammy tomorrow, Tammy Campbell, Dr. Campbell, to make sure that maybe we can get, as we work through this in preparation for the next meeting, that we identify perhaps some key issues for them. Sure. And if we're aware of it, maybe we can get some council members down there, myself down there, and even if we're aware of something that matters to them, we could speak as one voice as a community.
Sure. It sounds like we'll be able to amend the agenda, but then perhaps for the legislative breakfast, we can have a broader agenda
Right.
to speak about things that are on the periphery.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we want to, yeah, I mean, I think we want to be supportive of them, and where possible, we can move in that direction. Councilmember Honda?
We might also ask the school district to help us with the homeless youth, because there are homeless youth that are not in school, but we have homeless youth in school, and Dr. Campbell's aware of that. So perhaps if, we could help each other out.
Right. Very good. Okay. So I do think we're going to incorporate the schools in there, and we'll reach out to Dr. Campbell and identify some issues. Councilmember Moore?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I tell you, I am incredibly proud of my colleagues and being a part of this council, because clearly you can tell that we are a caring community. We're always looking out for our senior citizens. We're looking out for our youth and our homeless population within young, in between young and old. So I just think it's incredibly thoughtful. One of the things I'd like us to look at is, I want to be a city that continues to advocate for inclusivity. I want us to continue to support lawmakers and bills that are being proposed that support people with disabilities. So that's kind of more of a general statement. I just want us to be a city that stands up for that and supports other lawmakers in that. So it's more of, it's not specific, but I'm sure Christine Reeves will understand what I'm talking about. Having her involvement in the legislature, and certainly our new representative-elect, Mike El-Chadi. I definitely remember that name. It's a new good name here. So I think that's really important. And I think, we've been a city that's done a good job building parks for disabilities and whatnot, and I think we need to think in a more broader scope. And so I look forward in working on those. Obviously, opiates have become more epidemic, and so I want us to, again, while we're talking about broad, I want us to kind of, a lot of the crime in Federal Way is happening because of, and I've talked to the mayor about this and my colleagues, are happening because of drug violence, period. It's happening because of dispute of some sort. And so I think I want us to be a city that are looking strategically at what is the state doing to fight the war on drugs. And so that's something I really want us to kind of get behind as well. That would be my feedback. And the question that I have here, and this is a well-done priorities. Steve, you always do a great job with that. I know you have a lot of experience in this, so I certainly look forward to seeing you, hearing about you, and our lobbyists work together, and our new representatives and senators. But my question is, you state here that Federal Way is seeking funding to combat the rise in opiates addictions. So can you go into specifics of what does that mean exactly?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we want to do is, some of these services are limited. Some of these places that folks can go, they can't go with drug addiction. But what we can do is ensure that our new day center has adequate funding to be able to meet the need and to be able to have the resources to get people into the referrals they need. So, it's a funnel system. So what we want to do is, we know that there's an opioid addiction problem. We know that that's exploding. We know that those types of addictions are something that's very dangerous for our law enforcement and frontline personnel to deal with when they're going into these encampments. So what we want to be able to do is ensure that our funnel mechanism, which is the day center, and to make sure that when we get people there, that they have all the operating costs they need, that they have the ability to take people and get them into the programs they need. It's not something where we're going to necessarily, as a city staff or as a police department, take someone involuntarily, but it's ensuring that the mechanisms and programs we have in place have the adequate funding to be able to get folks the help they are seeking.
Thank you for that response. And just in closing for a second, going back to what some of my colleagues have stated, I know that last year our school district did have legislative priorities, and I strongly believe that they did go down to Olympia and lobby. So that's just kind of a tidbit for us as a reminder.
So I think this provides a great opportunity to coordinate those efforts. Okay. All right, thank you. Council, anything else? And again, this is a draft form. Steve, you have your direction?
Yes, sir.
We'll see you on the 6th.
Thank you.
All right, and that was not an action item. Okay, now moving on to first reading and introduction ordinances. Council Bill number 711 for the 2017-18 biennial budget. We still have a little bit of work to do before we get there. So staff report from Ade Ararulu, our finance director. Please proceed.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. This is a recap of the presentation and the discussion the Council had last week regarding some of the funding options for some of the programs. So at the last special council meeting on Wednesday, the council came up with the 5 funding options, and I will go through them quickly. The first one is to be able to levy admission tax of 5% with 60 cents cap. We're estimating that will raise about $400,000 annually. And within this option number 1, the second proposal is transportation benefit district. That is not included in this option 1. Also, business registration, to modify the fees that we charge for business registration. We're estimating that will bring in additional $360,000 on top of what we have now. Also, to levy utility tax at the current 7.75%, which that will also raise additional $1 million. And also to apply for COP grant in 2017 for 2018. That is the option 1 that was discussed last week. Option 2 is to be able to do admission tax, which will raise $400,000, to do transportation benefit district, that will raise about $620,000. Business registration, $360,000. Utility tax, and also COP grant with a total of $2.38 million in 2017 and $2.61 million in 2018. Option 3 is to be able to do admission tax the same way with the $400,000, and transportation benefit district with $15 that will raise about $930. Business registration as proposed, $360. No utility tax and COP grant. This is option 3, and that will raise 1.69 and 1.92. Option 4 will do admission tax, no transportation benefit district, modify, business registration, and no utility tax plus COP grant. That is estimated to raise 1.2 in 2017 and 1.43 million in 2018. Option 5, the major difference between the option 5 is the level of the transportation benefit district, and also double the business registration, which increased that to about 0.6 million, and no utility tax. That is expected to raise 1.82 million and 2.05 million in 2018. Those are the 5 options that are brought up last week for to be able to generate additional revenue. Now, with all the possible ways of the project that we need to fund, also the council came up with 4 different scenarios. The first one is to be able to do the 4 police officers in 2017 and 5 police officers in 2018, with 0.55 million in 2017 and 1.2 million in 2018. To be able to contribute about $250,000 towards equipment reserve. In the original budget that was presented to the council, we skipped funding the equipment reserve for the city for 2017 and 2018. So this is proposing, instead of skipping the entire 0.8 million, to actually put 2.5 million back in there. To fund Gala contract, which the council just approved this afternoon, and to fund Historical Society, 10,000 in 2017 and 10,000 in 2018 out of the general fund, with the total cost of 1.15 million and 1.82 million. That is the option 1. Option 2 is to be able to do the same thing with the police officers, but to fund our equipment reserve fully at 0.84, and to fund the Gala contract, 0.34, to fund the job market, 0.3, and to fund our unfunded position that were requested in the 2017 and 2018 budget, but we were not able to fund that, and also to fund Historical Society, 20,000 for 2017 and 18. The total cost of that is 2.41 million in 2017 and 3.11 million in 2018. Option 3 is to do the same thing for the police officers. In terms of the equipment reserve, instead of funding it at 0.8 million, to fund it at $500,000 each, and to fund the Gala contract, the job market, and the unfunded position, to do that at 0.18, and Historical Society at 10,000 for 17 and 18. The total of that is 1.88 million in 2017 and 2.56 million in 2018. The option 4, that is at a lower cost of 1.7 million in 2017, with funding the police officers in a similar manner, and funding $500,000 of the 0.8 million for each of the years. And the Gala contract at 0.34, and job market fully 0.3, and now fund the unfunded position. And again, to fund the Historical Society at 10,000. Those were the offers. Those were the options that were proposed last week. Now, this is a compromise in addition to what was discussed last week. This is another proposal that Mayor is bringing forth. Now, based on all the numbers that I just went through, the option 1, in terms of what to fund, is modified. It's modified in the sense that we change the option 1. What we included in the option 1, which the total of option 1 before was 1.15 million in 2017 and 1.82 million in 2018. It has 0.55 for the police officer, 0.25 for the equipment reserve, 0.34 for the guild, but 0 for the job market, 0 for the unfunded, and 10,000 for historical society. This modified proposal has increased the support for historical society by 10,000, is funding the unfunded position by about 150,000, and is funding our job market at 0.15 million also.
So instead of, council, funding the job market at $300,000, the proposal, the compromise proposal, is just to selectively use $150,000 to get us into a competitive rate where we need to. And then, again, instead of no money for the unfunded positions for Parks and Public Works, or for Parks, is $150,000, and Historical Society for $20,000 per year. And that gives that's the compromise option after listening to everybody. Can you go back to the slide again and then go through where?
The Historical Society?
Historical Society at $20,000 per year.
Is that, where's it coming from?
That general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, my arm is out of socket.
Let me shake your hand.
So the compromise proposal is $20,000 per year out of the general fund based because we've located these additional revenue options. And if the Historical Society, subject to what you guys think, if the Historical Society wants to go after what's it called?
Lodging tax.
Lodging tax, thank you. Lodging tax money, it can, but their funding is not dependent on that. And then if you could go through the revenue options for the compromise.
Okay, the option 3, that is, we're picking option 3 in the source of funding. That will provide, we're using 5% admission tax with a 60 cents cap. That will provide us about, $400,000 a year. And Transportation Benefit District, instead of $20, do 75%, that would be at $15. That would net us about 0.9 million. Business registration, about 0.36, and utility tax, no utility tax, and COPS grant at 0.23. That will provide us 1.69, which is a little bit higher than what we need in 2017. That will give us an excess of 4.23 million, which we hope to carry into 2018. With that brings the total available revenue in 2018 to 2.15 million, which will cover the 2.13 million proposed spending for 2018.
By walking away from the utility tax and taking a look at these options, it actually increases revenue by $300,000, and we moved that into the categories for the job market and unfunded positions. So is that your presentation today?
Yes.
Okay. So to get the conversation started, I'm going to turn it over to our FedRec chair to make a motion, get us started, and then we'll have that discussion. So, Councilmember Duclos.
Thank you. I move to forward the proposed modified ordinance to the December 6, 2016 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the proposal? Can you now go to that page, the last page, the compromise options?
Mayor Farrell, I do have one comment.
Yes, please.
I'm concerned that we're establishing precedent by funding the Historical Society at $20,000 per year without any sort of a contract to support the reasons or what the services provided actually are. And so I would add an amendment that we have the staff come up with some kind of contract that truly serves the city's interests, much like we do with the Chamber of Commerce.
Actually, Mark, Councilmember Kopang, You're absolutely right. We wouldn't be able to do this. I've talked with our lawyers. We wouldn't do that. We would not be able to do that without the contract, as it would be an unconstitutional gift of public funds. So I neglected to say that that would be a condition precedent to the receiving of monies.
Okay, I think with that condition, I would be happy to support the compromise as written.
Okay, and there's been a motion, a second. The maker, actually, Councilmember Honda.
Thank you. Well, compromise is good. It's how we move forward.
That's right.
But I do have some concerns. One is, if the COPS grant does not come in, we either need to find the funding for those additional officers, or we need to make it very clear to the public that we cannot hire them. And that needs to be very clear from this moment on. I think when this budget was given to us, I had some concerns. One was that our police chief did ask for 2 additional officers, and it wasn't approved in the additional budget. And then just a week or so after that, the mayor came out and asked for 9 additional officers, and kind of put it on our shoulders as a council to find money for that. And we've done that with this proposal, but it does remain a concern. I am concerned that we have other positions in the city, other departments that need additional staffing. And while I understand why we are staffing the police department the way we are, I also don't want to forget, especially the Parks Department, Public Works, they all need additional staffing. Even Aday and I were talking, even he may need additional staffing. So we need to continue looking for ways that the city of Federal Way can increase their revenue, because this isn't going to go away. It will only get worse in the future. I would like to say that Councilmember Duclos and I have been talking about the FEDRAC committee starting in January, working on a plan for the future, because we need a plan going forward on increasing revenue and perhaps decreasing costs, but certainly increasing revenue. 2019 is going to be here before we know it. In 2019, we're going to have some concerns and some issues that we can't solve right now. So we need to be working now to find that additional revenue.
Point of order, Mayor Farrell, excuse me if I may. We have a pending motion on the floor, and we are also at 10 p.m. And so we can't bring another motion to the floor until after this motion has been resolved. So we could do a motion to continue this discussion after in a few minutes, but we do need to extend this.
All right, Deputy Mayor, do you have a motion to continue this discussion after we handle the 10 o'clock motion?
I so move.
All right, is there a second? Second. There's been a motion and a second to continue this after we take care of the housekeeping matter of moving past 10 p.m. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matter passes. All right, now,
The time.
yes, Deputy Mayor Burbidge?
I move to extend the time of the meeting past 10 p.m.
There's been a motion and a second to extend our meeting past 10 p.m. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion continues. All right.
Anyway, continuing on, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm certainly glad that we've taken the utility tax off the table. My opinion on the utility tax was we've just signed the franchise agreement just months ago, and if that needs to be something we need to talk about in the future, let's put Lake Haven and the city together again, and let's come up with a plan, but let's not do it the way that it was proposed. So thank you very much.
Okay, just briefly in regard to the history, I did propose our city budget with the idea that we would not have to raise revenue, and in today's challenging economic times, I think we would all agree that we would not want to be in a position in which we have to raise revenues. I became convinced because of a number of different factors, not the least of which is to get the ratio of our officers to our historical 1.4 per thousand. But I believe that is urgent in order to get us over the next biennium to a staffing level that is concomitant with our number one priority for public safety. And after much consternation, the only way to do that was to seek ways to raise revenue. I think it is important, especially to clarify the record, that I didn't just say we're going to have 9 officers and did not propose a solution. I did provide a absolute balanced solution. It did involve the utility tax. It did involve the registration fees. And then I invited council to come up with their own. And so I think it's very important to clarify that I didn't just say we need 9 officers and didn't just throw it on the council to figure out a way to pay for it. I actually did propose, and with the assistance of Aday and Brian and the entire staff, a way to fund this. But ultimately, this is something that council needs to do, and we have been looking, as you could see from all of these options, all of the different funding options. It is not my decision to make, it's the council's decision to make in regard to how this is ultimately done. So, and in regard to a plan, this is a plan for the next 2 years, and we have identified, actually we've done a tremendous amount of work in regard to possible revenue options, of which we now see a pathway if we need to look at additional revenue sources. So we've done, quite a bit over the last 6 weeks to identify the pathway forward. I look forward to hearing some funding options coming out of FedRec, but I think to make a more complete picture, the budget document that'll be passed by the city is a future plan for the next 2 years and then moving forward. The most important thing is I think we are unanimous in our desire to have a safe city and have those officers present. So just want to make that clarification for the record. Deputy Mayor Burbidge.
Thank you. I would concur that this proposal speaks to the priorities of the city and certainly of the council and the mayor. But I also would add that even aside from hiring additional officers, we are beginning to address with this proposal the long-term sustainability of the city. But more needs to be done, and I applaud the interest of our FedRec chair in wanting to address those issues in the next biennium. And I share the concerns about the additional staff members that we are in need of hiring and of the levels of salary that are going to be needed in the future, considering the other appealing job opportunities in the region that are going to be available. So we have a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Okay. One thing, Councilmember Duclos.
Just want to make a statement. As the former CEO of the Multi-Service Center, I had to deal with these problems, not on quite the large scale that the city does, but it was a large scale. It was a $5 to $10 million budget that I was dealing with. And we had to look at things like this too. That's why we started looking years ahead on how we were going to get through. We'd have a biennium budget too, but how are we going to then enter the next one? And that's what I want FedRec to start looking at and developing over the coming months, and then bringing some ideas back and running it by the council and getting feedback on what they think about it, and even our citizens giving us some feedback.
I think it is instructive to note as well that when Proposition passed back in 2006, I believe, we had, it was originally for 18 positions where we got up, where we were staffed at 136. By the time we got a few years down the road, we were staffed with uniformed officers at 122 officers. And so we've been working our way back after the Great Recession. First, when I was on the council, first to get to 124, then 126, then now we were prior to this, we were at 131. And so it is a quantum leap to get, and really I think, after we had those public hearings in here in which we were 5 or 6 deep along the wall, in which the community really responded and said, we need these number of officers. Frankly, when I heard the number 140, I really didn't think that was possible. But I think that was a failure of imagination, and I think a failure of will. And I think, that we just finally just had to put our foot down and say that we need to find the political wherewithal to get to a police staffing at 140. And this would be a quantum leap moving forward and get this community to the public safety standpoint that it needs and deserves. That being said, is there any other discussion?
Point of order, Mayor Farrell. Before
Yes.
we can take a vote, the clerk needs to read the
That's right.
ordinance
Thank you.
title.
That's right. Stephanie, please read the title.
Council Bill 711, 2017, 2018 biennial budget, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington relating to budgets and finance, adopting the 2017, 2018 biennial budget.
All right, that being said, it's been moved and seconded to approve the compromise option, modified option number 1 for the expenditures, and option 3 for the revenue options. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that matter passes unanimously. Mark, did you say aye?
Yes, you did.
Okay, all right. All right, all right, now moving on, item B, Council Bill number 712, 2017 property tax levy. Staff report from Ade Arewulu, our finance director. Please proceed.
RCW 8455-120 provides that the council must have a public hearing in order to levy tax. Actually, a single public hearing may be held on this matter. This year, I think the council and the mayor, they've done an excellent job in actually going beyond that. Specifically, authorizing the increase in terms of both dollars and percentage. Those are the things that you must specify in your ordinance to levy the tax. So this year, we had public hearing on October 4th, October 18th, November 1st, November 9th, and of course today. So even though the law says you can have just one public hearing, for this year we've had 5. The limit factor that you can raise it between the limit factor of 1% or IPD of 0.95. This year, the IPD is less than 1, and of course, you passed the resolution to be able to use the limit factor. So the old rate is 1.185 per 1,000. So what the new, and it's based on the preliminary number from King County office, the new number will be about 1.13 per 1,000. And the percentage increase would be about 0.71% in terms of dollar amount. The total property tax revenue will increase by about 74,000 plus the new construction. This ordinance, when you pass the ordinance on December 6th, will be sent. Actually, we were supposed to have it to the council or to King County by December 5th. So, but hopefully, I promised them that the moment you pass it on December 6th, I will email it to them, and it will be in their office when they get there on the 7th. According to RCW 845220, it shall be the duty of the city council or other governing body of every city, other than a city having a population of 300,000, so that you need to certify to the legislator, to the King County legislator, whatever it is that you've levied, and also you will authorize me to do that. Just as a quick reminder before you levy, this is the 2016 property tax. I think out of each $1 property tax paid by the property owner in the city of Federal Way, only 8 cents comes to the city. Out of each dollar. Also, looking at the breakdown of the city's property tax, which for 2016 is a total of $14.55 per thousand. So out of that, only $1.18 comes to the city. So based on this, if you can look, the major part of it goes to the school district, more than 46%. 10% goes to King County, and 14, almost 15%, goes to Washington State, and the county flood, which goes to the county, about 1%, and 1.2 goes to the Port of Seattle, and 13 goes to the fire district and the library, 3.3%, and EMS, almost about 2%. Out of the total property tax levy in the city of Federal Way, 55% is approved by the voters. They actually voted for it. So out of the $14.55, they approved more than $8 of that amount. If we compare the property tax levy that we have to our neighboring city, we are still the lowest. This is the city of Federal Way compared to Burien, compared to Kent, compared to Auburn, SeaTac, Renton, and city of Seattle. If we look at our property tax rate since 2007, this is how we rank. So again, consistently, the property tax rate in the city of Federal Way is lower than all the other cities every year since 2007. So I'm hoping that you will consider levying or moving the ordinance to the second reading.
All right, council, any questions? All right, seeing none, would the city clerks please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 712, 2017 Property Tax Levy, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, relating to fixing the property tax amount for the year 2017.
All right, Councilmember Duclos.
I move to forward the proposed ordinance of the December 6, 2016 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes unanimously. Item C, Council Bill 713, adoption of the 2016 King County, Washington Surface Water Design Manual and City of Federal Way addendum to the King County Surface Water Design Manual. First, we'll have a staff report from E.J. Walsh, Deputy Public Works Director. E.J.?
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. Tonight I am here to give you a brief update of what went to the LUTC committee, and it's for the ordinance for the adoption of the 2016 King County, Washington Surface Water Design Manual and the 2016 City of Federal Way addendum to the same. So the policy question is, should the City Council approve an ordinance for the adoption of the 2016 King County, Washington Surface Water Design Manual and the 2016 City of Federal Way addendum to the King County, Washington Surface Water Design Manual? It's a mouthful. So the quick background, and I'll move through this quickly since I know the majority of the council members have seen it, and I'm happy to answer any questions. The City of Federal Way is a Phase 2 permittee under our NPDS program. So we rely on the King County Manual, who is a Phase 1 permittee, to develop the stormwater manual that we use for development. They have done that. That was passed this spring. And the permit requirements within our permit is that we either adopt the King County Manual, since that's the county level permit, we adopt Ecology's manual, which is developed independently, or we create our own. By code, city precedent is that we automatically adopt the King County Manual. That was done. It was effective as soon as the King County Manual was effective. So this portion of the ordinance is just a housekeeping item to update our code to match the current King County Manual. So the key changes to the King County Manual were driven by the EPA through the state. They revised the watershed modeling methodology, and in simple terms, what the next three of the items include is, if you think about a rain event, you can think about something like this morning where it's one day, it's a couple hours, you can measure an amount, and you say that's the event. The other way to do it, and what's become more commonly accepted by the EPA, is instead of looking at that as one succinct event, looking at the watershed over the course of a period, or typically a month. So you have multiple storms going through the watershed at the same time. It's a big change, in the modeling. The computer technology's come along in the last couple of years to allow that to happen. It's more accurate. And that's the big change to the manual, is incorporating that into the design requirements. So there's not a way to say for this specific project that makes a pond bigger or smaller. It is strictly dependent on where in the watershed that project is, and also all of the unique circumstances around that property. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, it does this to a property. The other one that's worth noting, although it does not impact the city, the King County Manual did make substantial changes to the requirements within rural areas. This is typically defined as a property over 50 acres, and it has to be rural, so it has to be in conservation, it has to be farmland, it has to be something in that nature. The property like Warehouser would not fall into the rural definition. The second half of the ordinance is the adoption of the City of Federal Way's addendum to the 2016 King County, Washington Manual. So again, this is an NPDES permit of ours through Ecology. The permit requirement is that this has to be completed by December 31st of this year. This is something that we had to have King County adopt their manual first before we could do this. Again, the majority of this is housekeeping. It's taking the King County code and changing it from King County to the City of Federal Way. So it's saying, if it says in the manual, submit to the King County Permitting Authority, we change it to say submit it to Federal Way. It's items like that. It's straightforward. The other requirement within our NPDES permit is to require the incorporation of low-impact development into regulatory documents. So that was essentially boilerplate language that Ecology gave us as part of our NPDES permit that we had to incorporate. We did that, and that's reflected in the addendum. So in summary, most of the updates, as you see, are updates either based on new codes that either the county or the city has adopted since 2012, the last time our manual was amended, or Chapter 3, which is the low-impact development requirements. There were two options considered. One was to either approve the ordinance for the adoption of both manuals, and the second was not. The mayor's recommendation was to forward option 1 to this meeting, and LUT's recommendation was to forward the proposed ordinance to first reading also on tonight.
All right, council, any questions? All right, hearing none. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 713, adoption of the 2016 King County, Washington Surface Water Design Manual and the City of Federal Way addendum to the King County Surface Water Design Manual. An ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, relating to National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Phase 2 permit requirements, amending Federal Way Revised Code 16.20.010.
All right. Deputy Mayor Burbidge, do you have a motion?
I do. I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the December 6, 2016 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, council reports. Let's start with Councilmember Duclos.
I'll be very brief because I already gave my report on the veterans housing. I just want to say that the next meeting of the Finance, Economic Development, and Regional Affairs Committee will be Tuesday the 22nd at 4:30 in the afternoon. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Please forgive me, this will take about 20 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure my colleague to my left will keep me in line, as she always does. I'm very pleased that in the coming weeks, the day center will be opening. I'm going to be really fascinated to watch how this is going to come into play. And more importantly, I'm going to be really excited and anxious to see if there are any methods of tracking the performance measurement of this, how well the center is doing, and how we're measurably doing our part to allow for the individuals that are utilizing the service to become successful. So I'm looking forward to this. And I do look forward to perhaps getting some updates through our Human Services Committee. Let's see, I also had the opportunity to attend the Veterans Day Assembly, two of them, today with the mayor and the deputy mayor, so that was enjoyable. I was also pleased that last week the city of Federal hosted AWC for its meeting, regional meeting, I believe, that, if I was not mistaken. And so that was exciting, and I can, I can't wait till the day comes when the Performing Arts and Event Center is built, where we could actually house or host the actual conference that happens every single year. So that's something I would like to see. I know that we talked about, I don't know where Rick is, but I want to thank him for his work and the LUTC committee. But I also want to reiterate that sidewalks are important. And while there may be designated areas for students to walk on, I do urge the city to continue to be extremely proactive in looking for opportunities to build actual sidewalks. And so I know that we've come with a new priority, I can't, it's 10 o'clock, guys. Priority list. So I'm looking forward to see how that's going to fit. And I hope that'll be, I hope that'll work okay with that, although I'm a little bit concerned. So, and secondly, I do want to thank Tom Messmer for continuing to come. Perhaps he'll be celebrating Christmas here in Federal. But I know that he made the statement of trucks, and that there could be as much as 52 trucks per day, if I'm not mistaken. That's still a lot of trucks. So it was just a comment that I wanted to add, that that's still a lot of trucks. So hopefully Tom will get that message. I think, I guess in the next year, I'm going to be, my last statement, this following year, I'm going to be really working closely with the mayor and my colleagues and our Public Safety Committee, our chairman, Mark Copain, on finding the root causes and really zeroing in on what do we do, how do we become a city where we can fight drug abuse. I think that doesn't get enough attention. I don't hear that a lot. I hear cops, which is great, that does contribute a factor of decreasing crime, obviously, and which therefore decreases drugs. But I want to be extremely aggressive when it comes to drug violence, because a lot of the shootings that have happened, a lot of the crime that's happening, it's because of drug abuse, it's because of domestic violence, and I know that our Councilmember Honda has worked on this issue, but I want to zero in on drug abuse, so that's going to be my goal in the upcoming year. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Copain.
I just want to express my appreciation for both Linda Kochmar and Terry Hickel for their outstanding service to our city. I think elections have consequences, but in this particular case, we've replaced 2 elected officials with 2 new officials, in Mike Pelliciotti and Christine Reeves, who have demonstrated a commitment by running effective campaigns and by engaging the community, that they will hopefully serve our city as well as the example has been provided to them by both Linda and Terry. Also wanted to thank everyone's indulgence today. There was a lot of events that I could have gone to in the last week, but the sickness that I have been enduring prevented me from doing so. I am on the road to recovery, though, and definitely look forward to being at the next council meeting in person. Anyway, I'm going to sign off now, but thank you all again. Great meeting.
Yeah, get well, Mark. Thank you very much. Councilmember Honda.
Thanks very much. Hope you're feeling better, Mark. The Diversity Commission had a forum on Saturday at the public library, and it wasn't, unfortunately, well attended, but those that were there, we got a lot out of it. When I was chair of the Diversity Commission, we had a forum at the Federal Way Community Center, and it was very well attended at that time. But I think we got more information out of this forum Saturday than we did at the one that we had way more people at. So Jean was there, and we had commissioners there and a librarian, and we did share a lot of information. The commission is doing a lot of work to address the needs here in Federal Way and trying to understand what the needs are, and I applaud them for their efforts. I'd like to thank our veterans for what they've done for our community and for our country. The Kiwanis Club and the Historical Society of Federal Way held their annual event Saturday at Todd Beamer, and the speaker, Jimmy Collins, was really interesting. I've heard a lot about him over the years, but that was the first time I'd ever met him. The mayor spoke, and his speech was also very interesting, very good. Thank you very much. We had some veterans in the audience that had never been to the program before, and that's what we'd like to do every year, is have more and more people come that haven't attended before, which is good. It means that we're reaching out to the community. The regional meeting, the AWC regional meeting at the community center was interesting in the fact that they asked us two questions. One, what a good thing in your community was,
What we
what
were
we're proud of,
Uh-huh.
and then what a financial issue occurring in your community was. And there were actually some smaller cities that said they really didn't have any financial concerns at this point, which we all went, oh. But most communities have an issue with homelessness, even communities that have never had homelessness before. So it's certainly an issue that it's not just here in Federal Way, but it is something that we need to work with others on, because we can't solve it ourselves.
True. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Sefa Dawson.
Thank you. Except for Maple Valley, they said they only have one homeless person.
Actually, I'm going to be there in Maple Valley tomorrow for that SCA meeting, so.
Okay. I don't have much to say, except to just add to what one of the speakers said at the during the public comment, Carolyn Cole. And I know we have the Crime Prevention Committee that is working out, and I believe her concern is valid, considering what's going on right now, and I think we should really promote zero tolerance, or, you know, whatever we want to call it, in terms of trying to address crime, hate in our community, and I believe that committee can really make that part of their priority. I don't know what all they're working on, so hopefully that's part of it. If not, I would highly encourage that they add it to their conversation, and hopefully that's also addressed in the survey that they just sent out. So,
Right.
So yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will relay that on to our staff lead and to the folks there to take a look at this and to make sure that that's not tolerated, and we send that message out. All right, Deputy Mayor Burbridge.
Thank you. I'd like to start out by mentioning the AWC regional meeting also briefly. It was, I thought, very worthwhile. I was pleased and proud of our city. We held it at the community center. And of course, the attendees from all the different cities were very impressed with the facility. One of the attendees was Don Jaron from Sammamish. I think that was probably the farthest city away that attended. And I had served with Don on the Transportation Policy Board for PSRC, so I had gotten to know him better. And he reminded me that when that community center was being built, I had told him about it, what we had planned, and he came down and visited and took that information back to Sammamish. And their council explored that possibility along with their staff and hired the same company to design their community center in Sammamish. So they have a similar facility to ours. I have not had the opportunity to visit it yet, but I found that very rewarding, actually, to know that our facility had inspired Sammamish to build their own. I attended a meeting of the South County Area Transportation Board this morning, and there was a presentation on an alternate method of funding transportation alternate to the gas tax, because the gas tax is a diminishing source of revenue for transportation. And there is a program being analyzed, which is more of a usage fee. And it's pretty interesting. You can go online and get the information. I'd be happy to provide the reference, and also our Rick Perez, our traffic engineer, was there as well, and additionally has the information. Also, there is an opportunity on Friday, December 2nd, to attend a session on advanced transportation technologies. It's a conference which is going to be at Bellevue's Maidenbauer Conference Center from 8 to 5 p.m. for those who have a day in early December to spend on transportation technology. There is a $50 fee, but for those who are interested, it could be worthwhile. I'd also like to mention how much I enjoyed the various veterans programs, the one on Saturday and also the one I was able to attend this morning before I went to the Transportation Board meeting. I was especially impressed with the presentations by the students regarding their families' work in the armed services. They're now being veterans. Additionally, I'll just mention briefly some of the wonderful entertainment coming up in our city by our performing groups. And I won't go into a lot of detail. I'll encourage you to look up the websites for these groups. But the Federal Way Symphony, along with the Federal Way Chorale, has 2 performances of the Messiah coming up, one on the 17th of December and one on the 20th of November. This is November. The 17th of November, Thursday, and Sunday, the 20th of November. And the second one is at St. Luke's. The earlier one is at St. Vincent de Paul Church. And then on Saturday, December 3rd, the Harmony Kings Chorus will be at the City of Federal Way tree lighting at 4 at Town Square Park. And then the Federal Way Youth Symphony Orchestra has their Christmas concert at 6 p.m. at Holy Trinity Lutheran Church. Then the Federal Way Symphony has a holiday concert on December 4th at 2 p.m. at St. Luke's. So it goes on from there. So please look up the websites if you have an interest in attending these wonderful performances.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And with that, we have completed our agenda. We are adjourned.